All right, can everybody hear me now? Sorry about that. This is not my typical equipment. I'm working with Larry's equipment, and I did not realize that my microphone was turned off. Can you hear me? Fantastic. All right. Okay, let's try that again. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to day 2 of the Alec Baldwin trial. We are here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and Larry is in the courtroom, and we might be able to spot him today. I'm not sure exactly where he's sitting. We are about to resume. I'm trying to remember which witness we had. If they were moving on to the next witness, I recall it was the criminologist who was just on stand. But yes, good morning, everybody. Good morning to my lovely audience. Thank you so much for being here. I wanted to do, our usual little intro, but my microphone had other plans. So in any case, here we are. We are waiting for the sound to come on. I believe we're waiting for the jury to come in. And I'm just curious what you all are thinking so far of this case, because a lot happened yesterday. Opening statements were a little different than I thought they were going to be. I was not as impressed with the defense as I thought. I was expecting them to do kind of a better job. And for those of you who caught Larry's recap last night, he was also very disappointed in Spyro, the defense attorney for Alec Baldwin, and his current performance. Larry had some thoughts and some feelings about, how he basically conducted his opening statement. And I tend to agree. I think it was a little lackluster. His point of view, basically, Larry's, was that when you're a defense attorney, if you start to repeat yourself, then you don't really have much of a theme. You don't have much of an argument, and you don't have much of a case. So, I mean, maybe that's not the right way to put it exactly. It's really the state that needs to put on the case. I know that everybody has particular feelings about Morrissey, who is the prosecutor. I know that everybody kind of, has expressed that maybe she has a little bit of a condescending style, that she's a little bit irritating. I think she's effective, though, and I personally like her. I really enjoyed yesterday's discussion. We did 2 streams. For those of you who weren't here, we had the morning stream, we had the afternoon stream, and I got a lot of fantastic feedback from chat. So keep all of your comments coming. I really am learning a lot from you guys. I really appreciate all of your input. You have a lot of unique perspectives. I also really like the way that you can all disagree respectfully and act like adults. That's not something that you see in every single LawTubers chat necessarily. So I'm really grateful that Larry has cultivated such an excellent audience. Let's see. So Margaret Roten is saying, I really like the prosecutors. I like them too. I mean, normally it's funny because we've talked about this, because Larry's a defense attorney and because I want to be an attorney as well, because I'm looking forward to my soon-to-be future JD. You always have to come into any trial with reasonable doubt at the front of your mind. You always have to be thinking, this defendant is technically innocent and unless proven guilty, not until, but unless. And it's fascinating because I know that, for those of you who haven't necessarily been following our coverage yet, Larry has told me, he's kind of surprised because he usually is on the side of the defense. He usually gives the defendant the benefit of the doubt. But in this case, he really doesn't see a way out of this for Alec Baldwin. He doesn't think that the defense case or that the defense argument, their theory, is very strong. He thinks that basically, punting it off, the responsibility is kind of cowardly. And I just don't think that the jury is going to sit well with that. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. We're still at the beginning. We have a lot of witnesses to cover. So far, I think the state is doing a great job. The witnesses that I have seen so far in this case have basically just been there to kind of, establish facts, introduce evidence. And I think I just realized that my headphones are on backwards. So I'm going to have to fix that. It is... It's funny, even though we're only 2 hours time difference, the jet lag is pronounced. And covering this trial, it's not, I think Larry was saying it's not as tiring as Johnny Depp because Johnny Depp was like 24/7. We are kind of trying to take breaks, but it's a full workday for both of us. He's in court, he's taking notes, he's tweeting. And so for those of you who want to know what Larry is observing in court, I will be sharing his tweets, and you can also follow him on X. He live tweeted yesterday all throughout the day. He gave some really excellent updates. And I know he's going to be doing the same today as well. In fact, I'm sure he's already tweeted some things. Let's see what he has to say. So Larry is reporting that the judge has finally walked in as of 7 minutes ago, I believe. Spyro began arguing passionately at the bench as lawyers are having a bench conference and gesturing wildly, which I think we could see a little bit of. Not sure what they're arguing about, as nothing was said out loud yet, and we cannot hear them up there by design. So it's no secret that there is no love lost between opposing counsel, between both teams. But I don't know why we can't hear him. Let's see what's going on here. We don't have audio for some reason. I think they wait until the jury comes in order to get audio going. Oh, and hey, look at that. We have a new member, Faith Alliser. Thank you so much for becoming a member. We really appreciate having you here. I love that. I love seeing all the new member chats. Keep them coming. So Q is saying, he reminds me of Rottenborn. Are you talking about Spyro? Because I'm kind of getting that vibe too. Yesterday, everybody was saying like, oh my God, I'm getting Lally flashbacks. You know, he's kind of plotting. He gets a little muddled. He's just not very good. And if this is the best defense that money can buy, I don't know. I'm worried for Alec Baldwin. I don't think that he's going to get out of this. Shandy says, I think it's silent when they are talking off record. Yes, that is correct. I got a little concerned there for a second because I wanted to make sure, you know, because Spyro's, you know, he's talking at the, you know, I thought he was saying something of import. I think we're good though. Y'all are too sweet. I'm seeing some really nice compliments in the chat. You're really cute. Let's see what else Larry is saying. I'm sure that he's tweeting up a storm. Nope. No, that's the only one, apparently. Unless I'm missing something. He might have tweeted something else. Oh, about 10 minutes ago, he said that he arrived in the courtroom at 8:45 only to find out that he is early. The jury reporting time is 8:30 a.m. He says, I am again reminded how much I miss Judge Penny Oscarati from the Johnny Depp trial. And for those of you who remember, Judge Oscarati was actually, I believe, I know that she was in the U.S. Armed Forces. I don't know if she was in the military or the Navy, but she was extremely punctual. And so I really enjoy a punctual judge. But I guess it does give everybody a little extra time to get settled in. Oh, Alec. Oh, Stephen is sporting some interesting glasses today. Looks like he's got some, like a hearing device. They have those in court for people who need hearing assistance. So Stephen looks significantly more impaired than he did yesterday. I'm not really sure what changed between today and yesterday that all of a sudden he cannot see or hear the judge or what's going on in court. I'm not going to make fun of him for it. Maybe he really needs those, but I don't know. With this family, with Hilaria Baldwin, there's so much, you know, with the Baldwin family that it's very image-based. You know, they aren't really, okay, when you think about celebrities, you think about Johnny Depp. And Johnny Depp, the way he came across on the stand, he came across humble, down to earth, self-possessed, you know, remorseful, essentially. Even though he didn't have a lot to be sorry for, in my opinion. Maybe some things. But with Alec Baldwin, I don't know. He hasn't testified yet, and I don't know if he will. I kind of hope he does, because I'm interested to hear what he has to say. And I don't think he can shut his mouth. He did that ABC interview, or maybe it was 2020. I can't recall. But he's clearly not listened to his lawyers, and he's clearly running the show. So where I sit with this family, everything is about looks, everything is about image. And for some reason, seeing Stephen sitting in the gallery with like the big glasses and the hearing, I don't know. I'm just like, is that for real? I don't know. What do you all think? I'm curious. Oh, Christopher Lewis is saying, I did see him use glasses and a hearing device yesterday during the visual displays. All right. I mean, I have vision problems, so I'm not going to get on his case about it. It's just a little odd because it's the first time I'm seeing them, but I guess I missed it yesterday. Annie Ruler is saying, Ola from Bremerton, Washington. Ola. Welcome, everybody. I love that we got we got people from all over the world watching yesterday. Denise is saying, Chandler, I get the feeling that Alec is controlling his lawyers and it's suffocating their skills. Maybe. I think it's two things, Denise. I think one, oh, they're bringing out some kind of board. I don't know what this is. To respond to Denise, and I think that I think he is definitely calling the shots because he's the client. And so, of course, when you are a defense attorney, you have to do what your client wants. If your client wants to testify, even if it's against the best advice of counsel, you kind of have to let them do it. But I also don't think they're very skilled. So, you know, their job is to put on a rigorous defense. And so it's possible that his behavior as a client is dampening some of their ability, but not much. I don't know. I haven't seen this particular attorney before. I'm not familiar with him. I don't know what he's like in other cases in other courtrooms. I'm just not impressed with him. And obviously, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't think I could do a better job than he is, but maybe it's just the facts of the case. I don't think he has a lot to work with. So ultimately, you can only spin it so much. We all know what happened. We all are aware of the events that unfolded that led to this trial. Sydney Ann is saying, can't hear you. Can you guys hear me? I hope so. Just checking. We're still good on audio. Let me know if I'm having any audio issues. That's the only comment I've seen so far that indicates I can't be heard. Sue is saying, yes, we can hear you. Okay, great. Excellent. Maybe she's talking about the court. The court feed is not in yet. We don't have audio because the jury has not come in yet. Andy Logan is saying, Chandler has a good-looking boyfriend. Yes, I do. He's very good-looking. That's true. Maybe you'll get a glimpse of him in the courtroom. It was funny yesterday, Larry and I decided that we were going to dual stream. So right now, we are streaming on my platform, on Remy Legal. We are also streaming on the DUI Guy Plus and both of our X accounts. And I went onto my channel when he was doing the recap. So he did his recap in the evening, and he streamed it to my channel and his channel. And I went to my channel to see if there were any comments in the chat, and some people were saying, oh, Chandler's looking a lot more masculine these days. And somebody else chimed in with, oh, well, you know, those couples, like they start to kind of look like each other after a while. And it was kind of cute. There were some other people saying things like, don't tell Larry that I'm here, you know. So for those of you who are watching on my channel, thank you very much. Wherever you're watching, I'm just glad that we have you all here with us in our audience. We have the best chat on the internet. Seriously. You guys are smart. You guys are quick, sharp, witty, and you have a lot of funny things to say, and you're very observant. I really appreciate all of your commentary. I can't read every single chat because I'm really focused on what's going on in the trial, but I try to read everything that you say as much as possible. Betsy says, what's that earphone thing that he's wearing? So Stephen Baldwin apparently needs an audio assistant device so that he can hear what's going on in the court better. That is Hilaria Baldwin, who I just watched a video of this morning, forgetting the word for cucumber in English. She's something else. Andy Logan is asking, where's Larry? What's he wearing? So today, Larry is wearing a red tie. I do not know where he is sitting. He probably is not going to be visible on camera, but maybe we'll get a chance to see him after the lunch break. Larry's tweeting now, Spire has a whiteboard that he plans on using, and the courtroom has turned into a logistical nightmare. Let's see what else he's saying. Okay, thank you for, I don't recall who pointed this out in chat, but thank you for pointing out that Larry tweeted about what's on the whiteboard. Apparently on the whiteboard it says Starline Brass Nickel Primer, which I assume refers to the bullets that are at issue in this case. That's what it says on Spiro's whiteboard. Starline brass nickel primer. Larry says, it sounds like the ingredients of the bags the witness talked about yesterday of the disassembled bullets. I imagine Spiro will argue she never sent the bullets intact, and there is no way to prove the materials came from those bullets. But let's see. So for everybody who is just now joining us, hi, I'm Chandler Remington. I'm Larry's girlfriend. We are here in New Mexico. I'm streaming. He's in court right now, and he is live tweeting. I will be sharing his tweets as they come up when we have the opportunity, but I will make sure that we can hear everything that's going on in the court, so I'm not going to interrupt any testimony, unless it gets really boring, you know, in which case I might talk over some of the witnesses or maybe the attorneys. All right. Looks like we're having the jury come in. Fantastic. I'm going to move myself down here so we can have a little bigger screen. This should be an interesting day. You guys standing from the camera is different.
You're missing a chair?
I don't recall if we ended yesterday's witness, the criminologist, if we're starting with a new one. Once I figure out who's testifying, I will put a banner so you all know who's testifying.
Yeah, I thought you were in the back too. Steve gave you after I said you had to.
Michael Carter, thank you for being here. And thanks for your contributions yesterday. You had a lot of interesting things to say. So Michael Carter is saying need to cross still. That's right. Thank you for reminding me. So the current witness, I believe, is Marissa Popple, and she is the criminologist. And we are waiting on cross-examination for her.
Break or whatever, and you just need to be patient. We're trying to move the trial along, okay? So, thank you. All right, before, and I'm sorry, I don't, this probably isn't the most appropriate time, but media in the war room or whatever we call it, one more cup, and everybody is not allowed to bring any liquids of any kind whatsoever. My staff is, and our county people are not going to be picking up trash that you all could pick up. Okay, and that also means downstairs in the jury assembly room. So one more cup, one more water. Let's just have some manners on picking up after ourselves, okay? All right, sorry I had to bring that up right now.
Is this looking still under oath, Judge?
Ooh, somebody's
Yes,
in
she's still under oath.
trouble.
Is that okay, or do you want me to?
That's fine.
All right.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Good morning, Investigator Pop.
Good morning.
Judge.
All right. And we're getting across now. It's happening.
All right, why don't we look at these now?
Okay.
Is this, are you keeping track?
Yeah, I'm not sure which media member left trash behind, but it makes it worse for everybody. They had a strict rule that you can't bring in drinks, even water, but they relaxed those, so we can bring in bottled water and I think coffee with a lid, essentially. But yeah, you could pick up after yourself. Not cool. But I don't know if you've noticed, this judge is very, very mom. You know, like she's really a stickler. She's really strict. She's very no nonsense. If a juror makes a face, she will be like, "You have an attitude problem. You need to adjust it right away." Nothing gets past her. Yes, the court volume is quiet because they have muted the court audio. That's what's happening right now. Because there's a sidebar. We have Morrissey and Spiro conferring with the judge. People are saying they like the judge. People have mixed feelings about this judge. She's very strict, just not on her own punctuality. Yes, Michael, that's accurate. She kind of takes her time. Oh, Hilaria looks very unhappy today. I know yesterday Alec was kind of trying to like turn around and talk to her, and she was like, People are watching. Cameras are on. All right, so Larry is now tweeting again. Jury's back. For a moment, it appeared like we were missing one, but she just sat in the wrong seat. What else is he saying? The juror liaison passed a couple of notes to Judge Summer, and as Spiro is about to begin his questioning, she calls the lawyers up to the bench to discuss. I imagine they are jury questions, and the lawyers and the judge are discussing how they are going to answer them. So for those of you who haven't heard about this, the jury is allowed to ask questions. It is at the judge's discretion whether she is going to them or not.
Okay, good morning again.
Good morning.
And
So
we're starting.
we saw a lot of pictures yesterday and heard about some search warrants that were conducted that you were present for. And I'd like to sort of divide what we do this morning into sort of two categories, the firearm and the ammunition. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. As to the firearm, I think where you left off yesterday is ultimately that firearm was destroyed in the testing. Fair?
Not destroyed, but broken.
Yeah, the word broken, that I think I heard you use yesterday. It's fair to say that the firearm can't be put back in the original condition that it was in at the time of the incident. Is that fair?
I believe it could be put back together with replaced parts. But as far as, in my terms, destroyed meaning no longer in existence, it is not the case.
Right. No, of course. The gun and its broken parts still exist, right?
Yes.
But as being part of the investigation and entrusted with the evidence in this case, the gun will never be in exactly the same condition that it was in on October 21st. Fair?
Yes.
Then I want to talk to you now about the ammunition piece of this. And the investigation into the source of the lethal bullet in this case led you to executing a search warrant at Seth Kenney's prop house, right?
Yes.
And you knew that he had provided star-line brass, silver ammunition to the set, correct?
Yes.
What you were investigating at that time was whether it was star-line brass, silver, and only dummies, or if it was star-line brass, silver, and he also had live ammunition at his prop house, correct?
Yes.
And you did know that Seth Kenney kept live ammunition at his prop house, correct?
I believe at that time we were looking for live ammunition. Yes.
Right. But you were aware of whether you found the exact correct live ammunition that matched perfectly the live ammunition on the movie set. You did ultimately recover some live ammunition, and you had probable cause to get a search warrant, right?
Yes.
And did that concern you that at a prop house that's sending out ammunition for movie sets, that there was both live ammunition and dummy rounds?
Yes.
So I want to take a step back for a second. When you go out to collect evidence on a day like October 21st, 2021, you bring with you your Nikon camera, right?
Yes.
You have gloves with you, right?
Yes.
And in a perfect world, you're trying to get to the evidence and the state of the evidence as quickly as possible. Fair?
Yes.
And so you did respond to this scene, and the first item that you collected that ended up broken was the prop gun, right?
Yes.
And when you got there, you knew that someone had touched it without gloves on, right?
Yes.
You knew that when somebody collected it, they didn't take a photo, right?
Yes.
But you did take that into evidence, and that was sort of the first item in this case that you were collecting and entrusted to keep vouchered and maintained for the course of this investigation. Is that fair?
Yes.
And it was a critical piece of evidence. Isn't that true?
Yes.
And so as you continue after that moment into the scene, you're looking for additional evidence. Fair?
Yes.
And physical evidence is critical evidence in an investigation, right?
Yes.
Because, witnesses and their memories can change. Witnesses can say one thing one day and another day, but physical evidence pretty much stays the same,
I'm
right?
just objecting to a compound question.
Physical evidence stays the same, right?
Yes.
And you logged all the evidence you collected in this case?
Yes.
And all the evidence collected by law enforcement in this case was ultimately logged by you?
Yes.
And by logging it, you also make it available for the defense so that we have visibility into what in fact you collected.
Yes.
And one way you figure out as you're going through a scene what evidence is relevant is you can talk to your fellow officers, right?
Yes.
You can talk to witnesses, right?
I do not. As part of I'm not an investigator, I'm a technician. So my concern is with the physical evidence. I don't do any of the interviews.
No, I know you don't do formal interviews, but in this case, you did talk to Seth Kennedy, right? You're not forbidden to speak to somebody who's at a scene.
No, I do believe we had some casual conversations, yes.
Well, but there are times where a witness could say in your presence, hey, that glove is very important. And they would say it to you and Corporal Hancock, and you
I
would know,
object to the hypothetical.
Overruled.
as I was saying, you and Corporal Hancock could be at a scene, and somebody could say, hey, that glove was used. And you, as a technician, would say, okay, that witness is pointing out that glove, that could be important. I'm going to note that. And once I confer with Corporal Hancock, potentially take that into custody, to take an inventory.
Yes, that's something that could happen, yes.
And the other thing that you do is, and you talked about this a little bit on your direct, which is you can learn information and decide what to forensically test. Fair?
Yes.
So in this case, for example, Mr. Baldwin's clothes had red on them and you tested it for blood, right?
Yes.
And it turned out it was movie set blood, right?
Yes.
Meaning it wasn't actually blood.
Correct.
Right? Okay. So as you continue through the scene, you get to the prop cart and you find the shell casing. And I thought this was on just a moment ago.
All right, Joe, come on. We need to fix something.
You're doing what to the document?
Yeah, it's the fastest.
Just in the way. It was up there. It was up there that you had a problem.
And I'm putting State's Exhibit 29.
I'm just a minute, Mr. Spiro. I'm wondering if
Oh.
you're trying to figure this out right now.
While we are waiting, I'm going to read a super chat from Jim Dara, who says that Levy County Sheriff has arrested John Crook on aggravated assault. Wow. Seriously? Search warrant served this morning in Otter Creek. That's crazy. Okay, we're going to have to catch up with that. I'm sure that Larry is aware. That's wild. We're going to have to talk to Jeremy and ask him all about it. And then, and thank you so much for the super chat. And
Thank you very
Kathy
much.
Cohen Ashby
Thank you both.
saying Alex seems to be trying for an HQ3 grant vibe. Can't say it's a
And
bad
I'm
idea.
showing you Exhibit 29.
We appreciate your
And
super
I'll,
chats. Thank you.
In a moment, I'll show you Exhibit 28. And this is the shell casing that you recovered in this case that housed the lethal projectile, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, you were able to then recover the actual bullet piece of the ammunition because you learned from Mr. Baldwin that it was at the hospital with Mr. Souza, right?
Yes.
And so you were then able to go to the hospital, and we heard from that officer, and collect the other piece of the ammunition, correct?
Yes.
And that's an example, right, of learning something from a witness and making a decision based on it, right?
Yes.
Okay. And as to the prop gun, because you learned from Mr. Baldwin that he just manipulated the hammer, you didn't test the trigger of the firearm, correct?
I'm sorry. You're asking if I myself tested the.
Trigger, yeah.
I'm not qualified to do that, so it was not completed by myself.
Well, fair to say that because you learned that from Mr. Baldwin, it impacted the way that you evaluated the evidence.
I object to the form of question. Can we approach?
This is interesting. So Larry's tweeting about this moment that just happened. As Spire asks the witness if she performed any testing, she responds, "I'm not qualified to perform such testing." Two jurors visibly sigh with a full body sigh. He says, "We have a pattern that's beginning to emerge. Some jurors appear irritated with Spiro's lack of knowledge." And I've noticed this. He keeps asking them these questions about things that are not in their purview and not in their area of expertise. This happened with I believe, the commander. It's very irritating. He's like, I'm not qualified. I don't know. That's not my area. Come on, dude. Get it together.
You spoke to Mr. Baldwin at the scene, correct?
Briefly, yes.
Okay. And he informed you that he just manipulated the hammer and that impacted your future testing, correct?
I don't recall what he exactly stated on the scene.
Okay. Well, let me just approach you for a moment.
Counsel, I'll need a copy.
We'll provide you a copy.
And by the way, I'm seeing we have 4 new members. I will absolutely acknowledge and appreciate your membership once we get a little break. Thank you so much to everybody who has become a new member today.
While they're looking for that, why don't we approach?
Oh, and we have our moment. Perfect. So thank you very much to Faith Elizar, Kathy Quinn Ashby, Lynette Stallings, and thank you to Brooke Palmer for being a member for 1 month. You guys are awesome. We seriously appreciate you. And I mean it when I say it. Trust me, you are wonderful. And for those of you who are asking about who John Crook is, John Crook is in the What the Hales universe in Levy County, Florida. When Larry had broken that news about the crooked, corrupt Judge DeThomasis several months back, we went down to Levy County, Florida, and we ended up hanging out with Jeremy Hales and George. They have a channel, What the Hales, and so a lot of our fans are followers of them. So thank you very much for pointing out the news. That's wild. I can't wait to dig into that later.
Page in line, counsel.
Yep. Page 3, lines 9 through 11. And I'm showing the witness. Does this, and as you can see from up here, this is a lapel camera from 1021, a lapel recording from. And do you see this answer here?
Castro Valley
Yes,
Lip.
I see it.
This is cross-examination, yes.
And so, does that refresh your recollection that Mr. Baldwin told you that he cocked the gun?
I don't recall that conversation.
Okay. But you don't dispute that it happened?
No, I don't dispute it. I just don't recall it.
So did but when you made the request,
Objection, let's approach.
Oy vey. So many objections. You know, I know that the objections are annoying to some because it breaks up the flow of the defense, you know, strategy and their cross-examination. But these are things that came up in motions in limine on Monday, so they have every right to be objecting. There are also some improper things the defense counsel is doing, unfortunately. It's not every single time. There's clearly a lot of animosity between these two teams. Oh, and we have another new member. Carrie S., thank you so much for becoming a member. We've got a lot. Wow, you guys. I'm so impressed. We have like 6 new members today. That's fantastic. And it's only, I mean, we haven't even been here for more than what? Like 37 minutes? You guys rock. Let's see what Larry's tweeting. Morrissey has objected more times this morning than Spiro got a chance to ask questions, it feels like. He says, I wonder what the jury is thinking about it. They seem to respect Morrissey more than they do Spiro. So although normally this many objections leads one to believe that you have something to hide, today it feels like Spiro is incapable of doing his job and Morrissey has to keep correcting him. Just my professional opinion. What do you all think? I mean, it is a lot of objections. I know people were getting annoyed yesterday, but what do you think today? Has anything changed for you? Scott says, these objections show how worried the state is about their case. Interesting perspective, Scott M. And then Andy Logan is saying, I'm just glad not to Lally's constant objections. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to miss Lally. Definitely not. I had enough of Lally. What, if anything? Who, if anyone? Where, if anywhere? Alabama Constitutional Crusader says, where did Alec find this attorney? Legal aid? Okay, that's a little mean, but I can't blame you. No, it's spicy. It's spicier than it is, you know. That's an appropriate question. And Carrie asked for saying, you and Larry are great. I started following you guys when Larry covered What the Hales. Thank you. I think we're great too. I'm really glad that you're here with us. Oh, and Margaret Tier is saying evening chat, and Chandler from Ireland. Damn, we really have an international audience. That's incredible. Yes. Okay, snarky. Snarky is the word. I appreciate a good bit of snark. I don't know, maybe it's a paralegal thing, but I'm hesitant to criticize attorneys just because I'm not one. And I always feel like I have to be sort of deferential. But sometimes I'm like, I could do a better job. So, okay, not really, but you know what I mean. Casey is saying, this defense attorney seems green behind the ears, so to speak. Yeah, I think I know what you mean. And Margaret Tier, yeah, we've been discussing the whole thing with John Crook. I haven't looked at that yet. Maybe when we get to a little break, we can look into it.
Just to go back to the spent shell casing for a moment, was the spent shell casing collected from inside of the church or on the cart?
On the cart.
And another question is, do you know if Mr. Baldwin's fingerprints or DNA were on the trigger of the firearm?
I do not know those results off the top of my head.
Is there a better witness that may come in to tell the jury that?
Yes.
Okay. And, you know, you were interacting as we were left off with Mr. Baldwin at the scene and spoke to him, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And after speaking to him, did you in fact test the hammer of the, did you in fact request to test the hammer of the firearm for prints and DNA?
Same objection. That doesn't lay the foundation. It has to go to why she did what she did.
It's the first question, and then I'll ask why she did or didn't.
Overruled.
Did you, after speaking to Mr. Baldwin, did you then test the hammer of the gun for DNA or fingerprints, or request that it be done?
The request that was made was after a conversation with the lab, which essentially was asking them what assistance they could provide. I believe the request was made for latents and DNA. I don't recall the specifics of what on the item they were going to specifically test. I don't know their requirements or standards when they receive a firearm. Most labs would do the testing on the entirety of the gun, but they might break it down further and do just the trigger, just the hammer, just the rough areas. I'm not certain. That's a question for their lab.
Right, but I'm just asking you, Investigator Papa, when you made the request, did you specify, given what we've learned now, we really want you to check the hammer specifically? Did you make that request?
I don't recall specifically requesting that.
And when you got to the prop cart, you could not tell from looking at it whether or not anybody had altered or moved any of the evidence, correct?
Correct.
And if somebody did, that would be a pretty serious problem in a case like this, wouldn't it?
It would be a problem in any case, yes.
Did you ever interview or review any interviews of Sarah Zachary?
No.
But one thing that you did know at this time for certain is that you were looking for Starline brass silver .45 ammunition, correct?
At that time, no, we did not know that that's what we were looking for.
When did you learn that?
That was learned later on once realizing that all of our suspected live rounds were Starline brass with a silver primer.
So all of the live rounds at the movie set were Starline brass, nickel primer, live, right?
Yes.
And this idea came up early in the investigation that what if somebody sabotaged the set and put those live rounds there? Do you recall that?
Yes.
And that was quickly dismissed in this case as not something that law enforcement thought to be realistic. Fair?
Yes.
But you also needed to investigate whether somebody from outside of the Rust set was responsible for injecting these live ammunition into the Rust set. Fair?
Yes.
And so you continue to investigate that as this case proceeds, and you executed search warrants, correct?
Not myself personally investigating it, but I believe that was something that was being investigated.
So, we looked at, and I'm just going to show you Defense A1. And what's this a picture of?
These were some of the rounds that were located loose on top of the cart.
And these live rounds being loose on top of the cart, I mean, you don't know whether those live rounds were there at the time of the incident, right?
Correct.
And again, these were all Starline brass, nickel primer, live, correct?
Yes.
And you were also not certain at times when you would collect rounds, whether or not they were live or dummies.
Correct.
Some rounds you submitted to the FBI to process to figure that out.
Yes.
And if we could look at State's Exhibit 27, can you tell me what that is?
This is a photograph of the silver primers on the 2 rounds that were later discovered to be live that were on the top of the cart.
I will be right back.
And so in this box you then collect, which is Defense A2. Right, what was your understanding of this box?
My understanding was this was the box handed to Lieutenant Benavidez that was being pulled from at the time to load the firearm. I was then placed in his unit and later collected by myself.
And when you looked inside of that box, State's Exhibit 17, what did you find?
These were the rounds inside of the box.
And can you tell the jury the significance of that round?
Yes, this round with the silver primer was a live round.
But you don't know whether somebody was rifling through this box and just missed one, do you?
No.
And you also showed the jury that these Starline brass nickel live rounds were found in other places on the set, right? This is State's Exhibit 16.
Yes.
And what is this?
This is a close-up of one of the gun holsters that has a live round in it.
Okay. And State's Exhibit 15.
This is a close-up of the gun holster that was belonging to Mr. Baldwin that has a live round in it.
And was then 15 this is 15. Was 16 the one that was the other actor, Jason Eccles?
Yes.
Okay. And so Mr. Eccles, another actor on the set, turns out that he, as he acted, as he performed, had a live bullet in his bandolier, correct?
Yes.
And you have no reason to think Mr. Eccles had any idea that was there, right?
Correct.
Your working theory, as you evaluated the ammunition and looked at the similarity between the Starline nickel live and the Starline nickel dummies, is that they could have been easily commingled. Fair?
Yes.
In other words, somebody could have mistaken one for the other, right?
Yes.
And so when you conduct then a search warrant on the church, you find additional evidence, right?
Yes.
And you talked about search warrants in your direct examination, but I just want to orient the jury a little bit to what that is. A search warrant is where you go to a court and you swear out a warrant, and the warrant tells you what you can search for inside of a dwelling or a location, right?
Yes.
And you tell the court what information you have and what you'd like to look for. Fair enough?
Yes.
And unlike somebody sort of, walking into the precinct and voluntarily giving you evidence, one of the things about a search warrant is you don't have to tell the person you're coming before you go, right?
Yes.
So as you're going into execute the search warrant on the church, and the warrants in this case, you did discuss that with Corporal Hancock, correct?
Yes, I believe we had some brief conversations about the search warrants.
And the warrant for the church, it didn't indicate that there was any specific crime you were looking for. Is that fair?
I don't recall.
And so when you went inside of the church, you were looking for evidence, right?
Yes.
And you remember, as you ended your direct examination yesterday, Ms. Morrissey, the prosecutor, said, you keep all of this evidence so that if anyone wants to bring any evidence, you have it, right?
Yes.
Okay. And one of the things you found in the church was the shot list for the dead, right?
I don't recall that.
Do you recall collecting paperwork inside the church?
Yes.
Okay. And
Your Honor, I've already indicated to Mr. Spiro that I object to some of these, so we can approach now. I wish we had dealt with it previously.
no, I think I can just lay it and introduce them.
Well, she said she objected.
Sorry about that, guys. I had a phone call I had to make. Let's see what Larry is saying about what's happening right now. Oh, breaking news. Hannah Gutierrez-Reed is expected to testify tomorrow morning instead of next week, as we originally thought. That will be very exciting. Now, as much as I wish I could be in the courtroom for that, I'm going to be here with all of you. And it's going to be something. Now, that's so weird because I thought she was going to testify for the defense. Apparently, she's testifying for the state. Looks like she may have cut a deal after all. But yeah, we have an order to transport right here. All the paperwork. She's going to be testifying tomorrow. That is big news. She's probably the most significant witness in this entire case, especially because she's already been convicted of essentially this same crime. And Matrix is saying that's so bizarre because the judge ruled against the DA for compelling her to testify. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. I'm really curious. I'm sure that Larry will learn more about this. We'll get some clarity from him, and he's definitely going to give us an update. He's going to come home for lunch, home to the hotel. So I will ask him, and I will share that with you all in the afternoon session, unless he messages me before that. We're in communication. He can't use his phone in the court because there are strict rules against that, but he can message me on X. And so that's how we've been communicating, essentially. So I will ask him if he has any other information to share. And if I have anything to share with you, I will absolutely report it. Let's see what else Larry has had to say. So other than that news about Ms. Gutierrez-Reed testifying tomorrow, which is wild. Apparently, about 9 minutes ago, when they were talking about the live rounds discovered on the top of the cart, the jurors finally shifted out of their boredom and started writing stuff down. Because Larry said that the jury is very bored today. They are not really thrilled with this line of questioning from Spyro. It seems like they are, hungry for information, as he put it. They want to learn. They want to know more about this case. They came prepared. They came ready. And Spyro's not really teaching them anything through this cross-examination. There's nothing eye-opening. But thank you very much to Anjanette Levy for that tip. We really appreciate all of the knowledge. Let's see. Oh, it looks like one juror on the end, a man in his 60s or 70s, just handed a note to the bailiff. Oh, my apologies. That was about 20 minutes ago. Sorry, y'all. Let's see here. I'm kind of hanging on Larry's every word here because he has the best insight. He's in the courtroom. My favorite thing about him covering this case as a media member is that he has something that media members don't really have. Other than some members of Law and Crime, no other journalists that I've seen really, besides like Chanley Painter, maybe Vinnie Politan, there aren't a lot of people who are both attorneys and journalists, and Larry is both. And he has insight into the jury based on his 11 years of being a defense attorney that not everybody has. There are a lot of people who are credentialed attorneys, but who don't necessarily practice. And I think that his insight is invaluable. So for those of you who missed yesterday, I would highly recommend watching the recap that he did last night. It was excellent. It was very thorough. He had a lot of amazing insight. And we're going to do another one of those tonight. We're trying to stick to a pretty consistent schedule. But it all depends on when the judge lets everybody out. Yesterday, we thought it was going to go till 5, and we thought it was going to go till 4. She's a little inconsistent, but overall, we're trying to work with it. So just to be clear, we are going to be doing 3 streams every day. This morning session, the afternoon session you're going to have with me, and then Larry is going to do the recap in the evening. That's how we've designed it. And then I believe a day next week, I'm going to be in the courtroom, and he's going to be streaming. So you will get to see him for at least one day. Tammy Steyer
Please
saying,
don't talk among yourselves or anyone else about the evidence received here in court.
what's happening? I guess the jury is leaving. Are we going to find out what's going on? Okay, this is where I have to rely on Twitter. What's happening? I need insight. Okay, Larry's not tweeting, so I'm just going to message him. I guess there's a recess. I don't know. That is so weird. I wonder what's going on. This is really peculiar. Normally, if it's a break, the judge will announce it. So she'll say something like, all right, now it's time to take our morning recess, or we're going to take a bathroom break, or something like that, and we'll be back in 15 minutes. Did anybody hear whether she announced what time they're going to be back? I didn't hear anything. This is very odd. I messaged Larry to ask what's happening. Hopefully he'll see my message and he'll get back to us with some insight. But for now, we are just left to ponder and stare at the New Mexico state seal and wait until we have a little more information. I'm just gonna keep checking social media, see if there's anything that comes up. Oh, Anjanette Levy is tweeting, attorneys at the judge's bench after Spiro wanted to introduce documents from the church. Morrissey objected. He wanted to lay a foundation. Morrissey said she would still object. Judge waiting patiently. Now bathroom break. Okay, so we'll probably be back in less than 15 minutes. Whew. It's a difficult trial. I don't know if you all caught this, but there was a point where there was a speaking objection from the state. And Morrissey mentioned that, you know, we've been over this already, that we were going to object to this. I don't know why this is coming in. And although I'm not exactly clear because I don't know about every motion, every pretrial motion, I'm only aware of what I learned on Monday. I have noticed that Spiro does kind of skirt the rules. The judge, denied certain motions from the defense and did not allow them to talk about certain subject matter. And then I find Spiro engaging in that line of questioning and venturing into territory that the judge has already ruled upon. And so that's kind of problematic. I do not blame the state for objecting. Now, I will admit, not every objection has to do with the motions in limine. I'm not sure, like the one today, I actually don't know the one. The most recent speaking objection, I don't know what Morrissey was referring to. It's just very challenging to get through this. And B-Rad with a 1999 super chat. Thank you so much, my friend. It says, hands off the DUI guy, all Chandlers. I don't know exactly what that means, but thank you. I am very much taken by the lovely Larry, we all love him very much. Robert Tower saying, I liked the only fan. Yeah, I'm missing the fan. The seal is okay, but it's kind of not as dynamic as the fan. Not as much action, kind of stagnated. And to everybody in the comments who's saying that I'm doing a great job, thank you. I really appreciate that. I love streaming. And I don't know if you guys know this, but if you're watching on the DUI Guys channel, I have my own channel, Remy Legal. And right now, I don't have new content, but I will be putting out content soon after we come back from New Mexico. A lot of the stuff that I do has to do with men's rights, issues pertaining to gender and false allegations, which really started with the Johnny Depp trial. So I guess that's kind of what brought Larry and I together. It's funny, I don't know if I ever, if I told you this, because you're all getting to know me. I've streamed a little bit here, but I haven't been a guest on Larry's channel very many times. But the funny thing is that, I don't know if you guys know this, but we knew about each other during the Depp trial. And I was aware of him and I watched him, his like live, courtroom coverage. And it's funny, we weren't really crazy about each other. We were both kind of like, nah. Well, I actually started streaming last year in February. I got a guest spot on Legal Mindsets channel during the Murdaugh case. That was kind of when I came into the fold of LawTube. And I've done a lot of guest appearances. If you guys aren't familiar with me, I've been on Laid Back News, which later changed to Laid Back Law with Eric Hunley. I recently did a really cool collaboration video with Nate the Lawyer. And I was on, like Legal Vice's channel, Chrissy Mayer. I've made a number of appearances and I've had a lot of practice. So I'd like to think that by now I've got the hang of streaming, and I really missed it because basically when I moved to Kentucky, I kind of just stopped streaming for a while because I wasn't very interested in it. I wanted to take a little break, but I missed it. And I'm really happy to be back. It's fun doing this whole boyfriend, girlfriend, like tag team kind of thing. I really appreciate that Larry trusts me to guest on his channel, and he thinks I'm doing great. So I thank you all for your feedback. I really appreciate it. I try to, I'm not Larry, obviously, but I try to bring as much intelligent commentary as I possibly can. I love all of your questions. Whenever you guys ask something that I can clarify, I do my best to find the answer. And if I get things wrong, then correct me, please. I'm not above being wrong. I'm always happy to correct myself. I'm here to be accurate, and everybody makes mistakes, but I'm happy to learn. Let's see. Zurnard is saying, we love you, chat. Oh, I love you guys too. Chat, you're so sweet. All right, let's see if Larry is tweeting anything else. I'm sure that he is. Now, he just messaged me back. I said, what's happening? He said, nada, bathroom break, because the lawyers need to sort some stuff out. So, oh well, womp womp. While we're waiting, oh, it looks like we have another. So you guys are so generous with the super chats today. B-Rad is saying, it's for you to take him out to eat for breakfast and coffee afterwards. Thank you. That's really sweet. We've been trying to kind of adjust with the time zone and everything. And for some reason, we can't get up early enough to make enough time for breakfast. So it's weird. It's like, when we're at home, I try to cook breakfast every day, and we don't have a kitchen. We can't really do that. We kind of have to rely on DoorDash. And so I think Larry had like a couple bites of some pastries from Starbucks this morning, and I would much rather, feed him a wholesome meal. So thank you for that. That's very sweet. I will definitely treat him to lunch, something healthy. I try to take good care of him. Denise is asking, oh, Chandler, off topic for a sec. Do you drink tisane? I don't know what that is, Denise. Maybe you can clarify. Tea? I don't know what that is. Can somebody tell me what tisane is? Let's see. And Stephen Rhodes is saying, Chandler, you would have been a good companion with Megan Fox and the Umbrella Guy on the Laura Owens trial. Funny that you should mention that. So I have a series called Wicked Women, where I point out women doing wicked things. And I actually was on Megan Fox's channel to cover some of the initial filings in the Laura Owens case, the tonsil twin stuff. That was fascinating. I'm friends with Megan Fox. Megan is awesome. Megan is super cool. She's my favorite internet mom. I love her, and she is super funny and fantastic. And I've had the pleasure of coming onto her channel a couple of times. Once, or maybe it was twice during the Kowalski trial, and then also for some of the Laura Owens stuff, which is the wildest. I mean, it was beyond. I've covered Courtney Clenny. I'm fascinated with women who do evil things and get away with it based on their looks. And I really like calling out false accusers and false allegers, essentially. I did an interview with this guy named Saif Khan, who, if you guys are not aware of this, it's a lawsuit that he filed against Yale. He had been acquitted. He'd been falsely accused and then acquitted of rape charges. And then he ended up getting kicked out of school with, I believe, a semester to go. And so he's suing Yale currently for $110 million. The lawsuit is pending still. There are a lot of different moving parts, but I interviewed him. I'm trying to remember when it was exactly, but you can go and find that interview on my channel. It's probably one of the most important interviews that I've ever done, because I think that there are a lot of false allegations out there. There are a lot of women who accuse men of things that they haven't done, and they use their female privilege. There is some such thing as toxic femininity. So that's kind of been my topic. It's something that I've really leaned into and done a lot of research about. And it's kind of blown my mind to see that things are very different than we actually think. So Larry and I both are very interested in that, especially because, he was very very passionate about Johnny Depp and his innocence during the Johnny Depp trial, and his coverage of that was stellar. It was kind of unprecedented and unparalleled. And I really loved the work that he did when he was reporting from the courtroom. So, I've always liked Larry. But in any case, I'm going a little off topic here just because we have a little time to chill and to talk and chat. And I want you guys to get to know me a little bit. Somebody's saying, which camera are you looking into? I'm not really looking into a camera. I'm kind of looking all over the place, but I will try and focus my attention on you. So yeah, I did my Wicked Women series. I only did about 3 episodes, but they're pretty good. I did one about Courtney Clenny, and Larry and I actually went to Miami. For those of you who don't know about that case, Courtney Clenny is this 22-year-old woman who stabbed her boyfriend to death. And she was an OnlyFans model. She had a personality disorder. She was very violent. She was very abusive to her boyfriend, and she ended up killing him. Unfortunately, tragically, he lost his life in April 2022. And I covered that case. I did a guest spot on AV to the 7th Power on her channel. And if you guys don't know AV, you should check her out. She's awesome. She's the lead attorney's main guest commentator, and she's extremely intelligent. She's currently studying for the bar. We did a really interesting episode about Courtney Clenny, where we learned some hilarious things about the motions that were filed. You kind of just have to go watch it, but that's a case. I don't know when it's going to come forward, but she's on trial for second-degree murder at some point. There are a lot of motions pending. There have been continuances. We don't know when it's going to go to trial exactly. But that case and the Sarah Boone case are 2 cases that I've been really interested in, because you don't really see women killing men very frequently. It's not common. It's not statistically common. And I think it should be talked about. So a little different than what we're talking about here with Baldwin. And there's definitely more to talk about here. It's just, I think this case is kind of cut and dry, and I don't really think that the jury is going to vote not guilty on this one. So in any case, it's been nice getting back to streaming. I really missed it. I'm really glad that I can sort of, that Larry and I can do this together. It's a unique experience. I'm really glad that we can be a team, and that I can bring you guys insight live from the courtroom. I don't think anybody else is doing that. I don't think that we have anybody who, has like an inside scoop into what's happening in, like directly in the courtroom. So it's definitely different here. A lot of the time in the past, I've streamed a lot of trials. I've been a guest on various channels, and we streamed the Zachariah Anderson case. We streamed oh gosh, there are just too many to count. Taylor Ship Business, so many of them, but it's really different when you're here. Just trust me. And Cookies is asking, what do you think about the 4th juror coming out about not guilty in the Reed trial? That's a doozy. To be honest, because we've been so focused on what's happening here in New Mexico, I haven't had a chance to really read anything about what's happening. I've been kind of relying on Larry's information, but I think that there is significant judicial misconduct. I don't know if they can appeal it. I don't know if Jackson and Yannetti are going to be successful with their motions, but I hope that they are, because I think it's egregious that the jurors were that confused. I mean, they changed the jury instructions mid-deliberations, and I think that's an appealable issue. Obviously, I don't know very much about appellate law, but I truly hope for Karen Reed and her family that the 1st and 3rd charges are thrown out. I don't think the Commonwealth should retry the case. I think she should be freed. They obviously did not meet their burden. And I just don't want to have to listen to Lally again. Honestly, he is so irritating. I'm very invested in the Karen Reed case. As you all know, Larry and I flew to Boston twice, actually. The first time we sat in the courtroom once. The second time I was not in the courtroom at all because they changed courtrooms. So unfortunately, we were only able to get Larry in one time. I streamed one day. And we met a lot of the people in Canton who are amazing people, really, truly passionate about justice. And I believe that Turtle Boy is having a hearing today about his case, the witness intimidation charges, which I think are bogus. But I really appreciated the opportunity to connect with, Kelly Reed, who's an incredible, lovely woman. The fact that Larry was able to meet Jackson and Yannetti, the fact that he was able to actually contribute to some of defense theory of the case and give them expertise about the DUI aspect of the trial, that was really cool. That was an unforgettable experience. And that's one of the reasons that I want to be a lawyer, really, because you help people. You can really make a difference in somebody's life with excellent legal advocacy. That's one of the most important things that an attorney can do. And I think that even though we're not coming into these trials as attorneys, we're coming in as members of the media and sort of as journalists, you still make a personal connection with the people involved in the cases. And so for Karen Reed, who I believe is 100% innocent and was framed in a massive, ridiculous cover-up with some of the sketchiest players I've ever seen, I hope for justice for her. I hope that she can move on. I hope that she can be rid of all of these charges and these false allegations, and that she can live her life happily and peacefully and leave this behind her. She's never going to be free of this, because there will always be people who will see her as a murderer. And that's the unfortunate fact. But one small comfort is that so will the McAlberts. The McCabe's and the Albert family, they're never going to have a moment's peace, because the truth came out in that trial and nobody believes them. So Auntie Bev, a lot of corruption there. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but I know that Larry and I both truly want this to be over for her. And so I truly hope that, that something good can happen with these motions. I wonder how long this break will be. Seems to be taking a long time. Larry is now tweeting. Alec's wife, Hilaria, was moved up one row to a standalone chair closer to her husband, the camera, he says. So she's no longer seated with the local Santa Fe attorneys in the attorney row as she was yesterday. And somebody asked, is their baby in court? No, I don't think the baby's in court. But she did bring the baby as a prop, which was very gross. I'm not a fan of hers. I have to ask you guys, because you might know this, is she really Hispanic, or is that just something she made? Because I heard that she's just like some white girl from Boston from a really privileged family. I think her name's actually Hillary, right? So where does this whole thing come? Because they named their kids all these Hispanic names. Does she even speak Spanish? Because I know she had a hard time remembering the English word for cucumber, but I don't know if I buy it. She seems a little, I don't know, insincere. Oh, I forgot about that. Albert, one of the Alberts, was it Chris Albert, was suspended without pay? That's something. Michael Proctor, I thought that Michael Proctor was going to be suspended with pay. I was very, very, very pleased to learn that he was suspended without pay. And I saw this funny joke somebody told the other day where they said, because Michael Proctor, this, the absolutely disgusting officer in the Karen Reed case, the things he said were atrocious. He deserved to be fired for them. His wife supported him blindly. And then somebody said, is Lizzie Proctor still going to support her husband? And somebody said, well, she has to now. So, oh man, Karen Reed. It's amazing to me that anybody could possibly find her guilty. I mean, if anybody who's watched that trial, I've had some differences of opinion with people on Twitter. Somebody I know who I respect very much thinks that Karen Reed is very guilty, and I don't see how. I don't see how that's possible. Medically, there is no evidence that his injuries, John O'Keefe's injuries, were consistent with a vehicle strike. It makes no sense. It makes no medical, scientific, factual sense, no biological sense. How do you have a man dying on your lawn for hours, and all 12 of you at this party don't even see him? I don't care if it's the middle of the night. How do you not see him? That's just insane to me. The whole thing is too sketchy. My mind's made up. Oh, Denise, you're telling me how do I pronounce that? Teas made from plants other than black tea, delicious flavors from fruits, flowers, and herbs. I do love tea. I don't drink coffee and I don't really drink alcohol. I'll maybe have like, one drink once a month or something, but I do prefer tea. I love green tea. I will drink green tea every single day. In fact, I have a massive, like the biggest size. I didn't even know you could get Starbucks this size, but this is all just, unsweetened green tea. This is my favorite. So I tend to, and Larry has like a huge tea collection. We have this big tea cupboard at the house, and he has all of these different green teas. They're absolutely fantastic. They're like special teas from Japan. I'm thinking of getting sort of those little canisters, because he has like all these bags kind of littering the place. So I want to like kind of organize his teas and label them. And he has some oolong, sencha, lots of lovely different teas. And then I remember when we first started dating, he had this really beautiful tea that, like when you pour hot water on it, it's like a flower and it kind of opens up. That was really cool. I don't know if you've ever had that tea. It's absolutely delicious, but I forget what it's called. So yes, I will drink any tea, but green is my favorite. Oh, Faye. Part of me wishes that I could be in the courtroom to see the action, but it is really hot in New Mexico. I'm originally from Los Angeles, and I'm very used to the desert heat. I have not really gotten used to the humid, wet, Kentucky summers. It rains like all summer in Kentucky, basically. We're constantly having thunderstorms and lightning. It's kind of wild because you don't really get a lot of rain in California. In fact, it kind of stopped raining in California for about 10 years. So when we had about a month of rain, I was not used to that. But it's nice to be in this cool air-conditioned room. I really love having sort of the midday updates from Larry. So like the courthouse is pretty close to where we're staying. He'll walk back. He'll kind of give me some, some input based on what happened during the day, and then he'll go back over to the courthouse. I like this little routine. It's fun. I know it's only going to be an 8-day trial, but I'm glad that we came here because this is definitely different from our norm, but it's a compelling case. I think that ultimately what truly matters in this case is that Helena Hutchins' family gets genuine justice. And accidental or not, this shooting was negligent. There was a lot of negligence. And we've discussed this. I think relying on the SAG-AFTRA guidelines in your legal argument, I think that for Spyro to do that is completely abhorrent. Because when somebody dies, you don't consult SAG-AFTRA. You consult the letter of the law. It was declared a crime scene for a reason. This was no accident. The gun might have gone off accidentally. I don't know. I really don't know what happened. But there are no accidents. There was a pattern of negligent behavior. Looks like we're back in court. And they're still having a sidebar. We're just waiting for the audio to come back. We're gonna have to wait for the jury to come back in. Hopefully Larry's a little comfier today. I bought him a cushion to bring with him to court. Just like this little Target cushion, you're just like carrying it around. But those benches are so uncomfortable. Cushion to bring with him to court. Just like this little Target cushion. Just like, but those benches are so uncomfortable. And Vicki Nelson says, you're doing an awesome job here, Chandler. Thank you. I really appreciate it. You guys are too complimentary. And now that you've told me I'm doing an awesome job, I am firmly in the camp of believing, yes, I'm doing an awesome job. And then you'll just get used to me. I'll be around for a little while. Vermatrix asking, Chandler, so if you thought Larry was meh, when did you meet and hit it off? I'll tell that story another day. I mean, our story is pretty incredible, and I don't think we've really told it exactly, but I mean, you all kind of know because he put that post out. So I think it was in January, where he was kind of putting out a bounty, and somebody had sent me this message, and they were like, "Hey Chandler, if you want to date Larry for a year, you want to split the money." So I looked at the qualifications that he wrote out, and I was like, "Well, I do actually kind of meet the criteria, and he's kind of cute." And I'm Jewish. And so we started talking and we set up a Zoom date and we talked for 5 hours. 5 freaking hours. Like, we didn't want to get off the phone. And then within 48 hours, he flew to LA. And then I moved to Louisville. So that's the short version. We'll tell it together, some other day. But that's the gist of it, basically. It all happened very fast, but I was certain and he was certain. And it was the best decision I ever made. Genuinely. So. And he's my best friend and my favorite person. Mark Wall is asking, who is this goofy girl? I'm Larry's girlfriend, and I'm acting goofy because I'm talking about Larry, because I'm very smitten with him. But I'm serious. I'm very serious. I promise. Sometimes. Scrambled Egg says, I'm a real Yenta. You two are perfect. I love that. Yentas are essential. Sybil says, not to mention your wicked cooking skills. Oh, wait. And yes, I do love to cook. I love how whenever I make something for Larry and he's eating it, he'll be, chat. Apparently you guys all want to taste whatever I'm making. I really wish I could share it with you. I can give you recipes though, that's for sure. And to Heather asking, did you guys hear about John Crook in Otter Creek? Yeah, we've been, I totally missed the boat on that. While we were on our break, I totally could have looked into that. Let's see what's going on with John Crook in Otter Creek. Apparently John Crook got arrested. I don't know if we're going to have time for it. We might come back to it later. I think Larry might include it in his updates because, well, he's close to Jeremy and George. So he has a line to them. I'm sure that they're telling him all about it. Michael Carter is asking, what does that mean in Yiddish and Hebrew, Chandler? What's a yenta? A yenta, so the kind of less generous version of it is a yenta is like kind of like a gossip, a busybody, a woman who's like in everybody's business. But it's really like, like Jewish mothers, who get very involved and invested, who want good things for the younger generation. I have friends my age who are yentas. They're, sometimes it's all about gossip, but you have to kind of know everything, and you have opinions about everything. You're very opinionated. It's a good thing though. You're like you have very strong opinions, and you're very, you are not afraid to state them. I love a good yenta. I can teach you guys Yiddish if you want. Larry does not know Yiddish. Weirdly, he knows Hebrew. He speaks Hebrew fluently, but he does not understand Yiddish. I grew up with Yiddish. I grew up Reformed Jewish, basically, in a very Jewish community because I grew up in LA. And so my whole school basically was all Jewish kids, even though it wasn't technically a Jewish school. And my grandparents spoke Yiddish all the time. And I took it for granted. I thought every Jew knew Yiddish. And so I'll say things in Yiddish and Larry will be like, what does that mean? And I'm like, how are you a Jew? Like, that just doesn't make sense. But basically, Yiddish is, for those of you who don't know about it, it's kind of a combination between German and Hebrew, it's like a pidgin language. And so some of the things I say he recognizes, but he'll correct my pronunciation and say it the Hebrew way. So like my grandmother used to say about people that somebody is good inside, they're gita neshima. But in Hebrew, it's different. So he'll be like, you mean geta neshima or something like that. Golden Mare is saying, wonder why that cop is in wearing his chest camera when in court, just part of the uniform, but he didn't bother to take it off. That's weird. I didn't see that. I'll have to look out for it. Where is the cop sitting? Is this somebody who's testifying? I'm very confused. Yiddish is a great language. Yeah, I don't speak it fluently, but I do know a lot of words. And my grandparents used to speak Yiddish when they didn't want anybody to understand what they were saying. So when they wanted to like gossip about people in front of them or, you know, stuff like that. Chris Maloof is saying that's the lawyer he gets for the money he paid. Yeah, tell me about it. I'm not impressed. I've seen a couple of people say things like Spyro is a rising star. I don't know how long he's been an attorney, but I am not yet impressed. I'm waiting for him to impress me. Cop is in front of Larry. Oh, you can see Larry in the court? Really? He's wearing a red tie. I trust that you guys know what he looks like by now, so you can spot him pretty easily. Matrix is saying Judge Judy used Yiddish on her show. I did not know that. I love Judge Judy, but I don't think I ever remember her doing that. Probably because I was used to hearing it all the time, so it didn't stand out to me. When I was a kid, I thought there were way more Jews than there actually were. Because my community was, I grew up with diaspora Jews. Basically, I grew up with my Jewish friends in school were from, Ethiopia, Israel, Iran. We had a lot of Persian Jews, Mexico. In my family, we have Moroccan Jews. We have Peruvian Jews. We're all over the place, all different languages, all different cultures. And so when I heard Yiddish, I was just, I was like, yeah, of course. Like, that's just a part of the lexicon. I didn't think of it as like a separate language. Like, of course you say, I'm going to schlep here. My grandma used to, get a lot of road rage. She's, say a lot of dirty words in Yiddish and call people really bad names. Schmecko, schmegegi, which don't call somebody that in Yiddish. It's kind of nasty. For any of you who are fans of Joe Good Logic, I know he uses a lot of Yiddish on his show. So I'm sure you're familiar. Let's see. What is taking them so long? I swear this trial, there are so many interruptions. There's so much happening. And I understand the state is frustrated. And I just wonder really whether this tactic is working against them or not. I hope not, because I think they're doing an excellent job. I think they're definitely outgunning the defense. But we will see. Okay, clearly I have to start looking out for Larry because I have not seen him yet, but I'm not like really scanning the courtroom. I'm like, yeah, he's there. I'm sure. It's funny. I didn't realize that there's a Jewish community in Santa Fe, but I passed a Chabad when I was driving to the wrong courthouse. Maybe we'll check it out on the weekend. Okay, are we starting? Are we getting going? What are we doing? Can we get audio in here? Can the jury come in? Hello. Thanks for waiting with me, you guys. Everybody's so patient. Like, I would have left by now, maybe, but apparently I'm entertaining you. So I'm happy to know you're sticking around. No, we should get going very shortly. Okay, here's what Larry's tweeting in the meantime. He says, the jury has been in this building for nearly 2 hours and have seen about 5 minutes of real action due to all the breaks and objections. For a practical perspective, it does not bode well for Spyro. He needs to pick up the pace and he needs to do it fast. This is not 1954. He's saying, I am now also beginning to wonder if Alec's jury is going to place the blame on Gutierrez like Spiro intended in so many words in his opening yesterday. His crew let him down. Alec committed no crime, as Spiro was clearly pointing the finger at least at Gutierrez. Well, we'll see when she testifies tomorrow how the jury feels. If she's testifying for the state, I don't know. And Larry's now also tweeting, the Baldwin courtroom is a snooze fest today with all the bench conferences. It is. It is a snooze fest. And for some reason, I have 2,261 concurrent viewers across all platforms. Thank you guys for being here. I think we're having a good time. You know, we're going to see some action. I think we're going to pick up the pace. I think it's just kind of a slow morning. Ken, thank you. Don't forget to hit the like button, folks. Yes, please. Absolutely. Hit the like button. Unless you hate this video, in which case, don't like it. You can dislike it. Any engagement is good engagement. Galileo Galilei is asking, is the judge not running a tight ship? That's a good question. So far, what I've seen from Judge Summer is that she is not very punctual, but she is a disciplinarian. She's very strict. So it's kind of in between. I don't know if we can chalk all of these interruptions up to the chaos and discord and sort of animosity between the prosecution and the defense. They do not like each other. They are very hostile and aggressive. During the pretrial motions, I don't know if you guys were watching, but there was a point where defense actually accused the state of Brady violations and Giglio violations, which, if you don't know what those are, it's basically that the defense was saying that the state did not provide adequate discovery for them and that they were withholding essential evidence and documents from them that they needed in order to build their case. And the state basically responded and said, no, we gave you everything. The things that you think you're entitled to, they got these, I guess, redacted documents, and the redactions had to do with privileged attorney-client information. And so the state argued that, no, there's no problem here. And they had to hash that out. It almost led to a continuance, which would have been terrible. So we would have been stuck here with no trial, nothing happening. It would have been ridiculous, but thankfully they sorted it out. It's just these two teams, they just don't get along. So I don't know. I guess I'd have to compare it to the Reed Gutierrez trial. Is this trial different? Are there more interruptions? Because it's the same prosecutor, essentially. I mean, these are the same, you know, but these are Alec Baldwin's attorneys. So it's a different defense counsel. I think that this case might be so chaotic just because of the way that they are interacting, these two teams. I guess this is a good time to ask, what do you think Hannah Gutierrez Reed's testimony will be like tomorrow? For those of you who actually watched her trial, what do you anticipate that she's going to say? How do you think the questioning is going to go? And what points do you think that the defense wants to hammer home with her? Because look, we haven't been impressed by Spiro so far, but tomorrow, if Hannah's on the stand, if she gets to testify tomorrow like we're anticipating, Spiro might pull it out. I think that that could be an opportunity for him to show something significant here. Maybe he doesn't have a lot of luck with these witnesses, but because Hannah was culpable and she was found guilty, he could work with that. I wonder how he's going to do that. Let's see what people are saying. Erica's saying, Hannah has nothing to lose and gives 0 Fs. I assume she'll find a way to say that Alec Baldwin was a producer. It will be stricken, but not forgotten. Interesting. You know, even though I was kind of bothered by the fact that the producer theory was, was not allowed in, I still don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. I'm coming to this conclusion now. They have a lot more to work with, the state, than I previously thought. And I also don't think that the jury is disallowed from knowing that information. So in other words, they probably are allowed to know that he was a producer on the film. I just don't think that they're allowed to hear that as a producer, that makes him culpable. So that's not allowed to come in. I don't think that any of his roles or behaviors as a producer come in. And it might be tricky because it's New Mexico, it's not Los Angeles. And so people don't necessarily know out here what a producer does. Most people do. I guess it depends on your level of knowledge and your interest in the film industry, but not everybody knows exactly, because there are different kinds of producers. There are executive producers. There are producers that they just finance the projects. There are other producers who are much more involved, and they have a say in who's being hired and how you're shipping it around. There are a lot of things that go into being a producer. And so since they can't really go into his role as a producer and what he did, they don't know how involved he was. So it might not make a difference, but it might. I don't know. Lady Autumn Sky is saying, I expect Hannah will say she handed the gun to Alec Baldwin and then they'll cut for lunch. And after someone else gave the gun to Alec Baldwin and she wasn't allowed in the church. Okay. I mean, if she's testifying for the state, then they're probably cutting her a deal to reduce her sentence. So whatever she says will very likely be favorable to the state. I just don't know how much the defense is going to be able to work with that, because they were both involved. Zurinard is saying, on the contrary, I thought producers had a lot more responsibilities than they seem to have. It all depends. Sometimes it's just about creative control. If you guys notice on your favorite TV shows and in your favorite movies, there are executive producers sometimes who are also actors in the film. A lot of the time, it's a way for the actor to have more of a say in how the production ends up. Things about editing, things that they don't want in the final cut of the film, to be a little bit more involved in the process. And I think the youngest producers ever were Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen at maybe 3 or 4 years old. I know they were named as executive producers on Full House, but I'm pretty sure they were just credited as Mary-Kate Ashley Olsen because nobody wanted to know that they were twins. So they had one name that they were credited under. No, they might have been 6. I'm pretty sure that's the statistic. I remember funny things like that. It's going to be a little bit of a hurdle to overcome that people in Santa Fe don't necessarily know about the film industry. But I think that the state might find a way, because we have some witnesses coming in specifically who, are either from LA, from Hollywood, they like Brian Carpenter, Kent Jorgensen, a number of the people involved in this production will testify and sort of explain what a producer does. Well, maybe they won't talk about that, but they will talk about other aspects of how a movie set works and different degrees of responsibility, what an armorer does, etc. So I think the state should be able to get in some educating information. I learned more about guns than I ever knew through this particular criminologist. She was very good at explaining things that I, as a layperson who's almost never shot a gun, I was not aware of. So it's all about how well you can educate the jury and how good of a teacher you can be, assuming that they know nothing. Something that I remember Shannon Curry was very good at, and something that Amber Heard imitated, for sure, turning to the jury, As long as we have some good experts, some good witnesses, I think the state can make their case. But my God, this is going on forever. This is just an eternity. Let's see what Larry is saying now. Larry has tweeted again. He says, I can hear that both Spiro and Morrissey are arguing over which exhibits should and should not come in front of Judge Summer. The parties are highly contentious, yes, and seem to be unable to agree on too many different points. It's really frustrating to everyone involved, including the jury, the media, and the public watching this trial. And the jury are still out. Like they're not in the room right now. And somebody commented and said, the judge must be getting very pissed off too. How was this not all sorted out beforehand? It should have been on Monday in pretrial motions. They were supposed to have an ex parte hearing and they were supposed to come to, a conclusion together and work everything out. Apparently they didn't. I can see why she wanted a continuance at this point, because these two teams cannot come together at all. They hate each other. There were so many pretrial motions on Monday. I never thought they were going to end. And now I'm seeing that they are not ending. They have not ended. We still have so many. I mean, there are still motions going on. There are still problems with, it's ridiculous. So thank you to all of you for sticking it out with me. Our numbers haven't dropped, and that's kind of amazing. I don't know if you guys are fans of The Office, but there's one episode where, what's her name? Mindy Kaling's character. Somebody says something interesting, and she, and then they don't tell her the end of the sentence. And she's like, finish what you were saying. I feel like my life is buffering right now. I feel like this trial is buffering. Like we're waiting for the good stuff, and we're on the edge of our seats, and we're waiting, and just, it's very, very annoying. Christopher Lewis is asking, would Alec know the difference between fake and real bullets? Yeah, I get it. Check the gun. Is that normal protocol on every set? Does every actor check the ammo in every shooting scene? They absolutely should. And you want to know why? Because even if it's not in the SAG-AFTRA regulations, it's in the safety training that every actor is required to undergo before they are involved in a film set where weaponry is involved. So I really feel like that was so slimy and so shady of Spyro to say, oh, well, SAG-AFTRA doesn't require it. Yes, they do. They require actor training, and in actor training, they tell you to check the gun. That's all. It's ridiculous. Oh, fine. Jury is coming in. Okay, let's hope something interesting happens, guys. And fewer objections, pretty please. Or maybe defense can stop, misbehaving.
No, this is your.
You may be seated.
Zeronard saying, I don't get why they used a real gun while rehearsing and filming a scene that didn't include shooting. Because they wanted to feel cool.
Good morning. We are, okay. Good morning again. So I'm just going to, we're going to tap issue, or this is. Okay. We left off.
So he's not publishing it. I'm just telling him he's going to publish it.
Right.
Well, you have to move for admission.
Okay. So I'm now moving for admission for A3.
Oh, it's in the SAG rules. Okay, excellent. So he lied. Thank you, Stephanie.
I'm going to lay for the foundation. As you stated on direct, and we're just going to put up states 21. If I can publish that, it's in evidence. As you testified yesterday, you collected items from the church that you thought were relevant to this case, correct?
Yes.
And some of the things that you thought gave insight into what happened, correct?
Yes.
And including in those was a copy of the script and the shot list, correct?
I believe there was paperwork that was photographed, but I don't believe it was collected.
Okay. Well, I'm going to pass up to the witness what it's marked as A3 and A11. Do you recognize these?
Yes.
And what are those?
It appears to be scene paperwork.
That you collected.
Yes.
And those are fair and accurate photographs?
Yes.
Okay. Offer them as evidence.
I don't believe that's an adequate foundation.
What more do you want him to do?
But what we discussed at the bench, but I mean, obviously I defer to the court, but I'm relying on the conversation we had.
Well, all right, so they are conditionally admitted pursuant to the discussion up at the bench.
So I'm going to now publish A3. And can you read that last sentence?
Russ Colt cocked quietly now.
And I'm now going to publish 811.
1 sec.
Let's see if this will allow me to zoom in focus. Can you read that, or does it not focus right?
I cannot read that.
Okay, I apologize.
I'm going to pass it up to the witness. If it's not, oh, it works like this, I guess. I don't know if it does it. So it's supposed to focus on its own. It's supposed to autofocus, so this is not my fault, just so you investigate. Okay, permission to approach.
Kim Robinson is asking, what would Alec's motive be to kill her? You don't need motive. In fact, you don't even need motive in a murder trial. Murder one, you don't need motive. Motive is not required. But this is manslaughter.
Macro on hammer as thumb cocks it.
Intent isn't part of it.
Is
Thank you for asking.
frontal slow push in on rust, his hat down, motionless.
Thank you. And you found and photographed these documents in the church in the vicinity of where Ms. Hutchins fell, correct?
I believe the first photograph, the first paper was, I don't recall where the second paper was located.
And if we look at states 21, I'll have that up on the screen just for a moment. When you collected these documents, you thought they were important, correct?
When I photographed them, yes.
Sorry, I apologize. When you photographed them. And the reason you thought it was important is because you thought it reflected what would have happened in the scene, correct?
I understood that there was a mentioning of a firearm in the paperwork, which is why I thought it was important.
Right, because it's actually just because you thought to yourself at the time and that it actually described what he's doing, right?
I believe at the time, yes.
And you said to your fellow officers that you think it's important because it confirms Mr. Baldwin's statements, correct?
I don't recall stating that, but it could be something that I stated.
And you indicated that you thought it was hers, meaning Ms. Hutchins' paperwork, correct?
I believe that one of those papers does have her name on it, which is why I thought it was hers.
Right. And the other paper that you already testified to, A3, was found around where she fell, correct?
Yes.
And it contains the shot list and the script for that day, correct?
I don't know
Objection,
exactly.
Foundation. Sorry.
I believe at the time that what you were looking at may have reflected things that were supposed to occur in the church.
Yes.
You also recovered Ms. Hutchins' cell phone, correct?
At a later date, I believe.
And that was sent to Byron French in the investigation division to extract the cell phone results eventually, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Now, you tried to find video recording in the church, correct?
Yes.
But the video cameras for the scene in question did not record that day, so you were not able to find that. Fair?
They recorded a portion of that day. There was a recording that was recovered.
And you didn't find any live ammunition in the church?
Yes, there was one live round located inside the church.
There was, okay. And where was that found?
That was in Mr. Baldwin's holster.
Right, so, right, the bandolier that we were talking about before?
Yes.
Okay. And you have no reason to think that Mr. Baldwin had any idea that was there, right?
Correct.
At that scene, and at this time in the investigation, Detective Kano was in charge, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
So while you're now then leaving the church, and we're going to move on, okay, you have to figure out how ammunition works on a movie set, right?
Yes.
That wasn't something that you were familiar with before the incident in question, right?
Correct.
And you sort of became the subject matter expert on that topic, right?
Yes, I'd say so.
Right. I mean, you were
For
called
the sheriff's
into,
office.
for the sheriff's office, right? But also you'd be called into meetings with Corporal Hancock and the prosecutors and try to educate them on those topics. Isn't that fair?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, you weren't running the case, were you?
No.
But you were there to assist not only with the evidence, but to be a specialist on this sort of unique topic. Fair?
Yes.
And again, you said this on direct, but I think it got a little confusing perhaps. But there are never supposed to be live ammunition on a movie set.
Oh, feedback. That's annoying. Okay, kind of breaking information.
Yours is on though, right?
We've got some problems with the jury instructions
Okay.
about intent.
Thank you.
I will share
There
this
should-
when I get a
You
chance.
understood that there should never be live ammunition on a movie set, right?
Yes.
And the one type of ammunition that occurs on movie sets is blanks, and those are the ones that just go poof, right?
Correct.
Okay, and I'm just showing you 812 that's in evidence, right? And those have a like a crimped top, right?
Yes.
Okay, as opposed to dummy rounds, right? I'm showing you 811 that's in evidence, right? Which look like real bullets, right?
Correct.
And there were different types of dummy rounds, as I think you said on direct. But you can't tell necessarily that a dummy round is a dummy round just by looking at it.
Not always. No.
Some dummy rounds have holes in them, right?
No, but you can shake them.
Others have their
And they
primers
rattle.
removed.
Yes.
Some of them do not have holes in the side or their primers removed.
Correct.
Some of them don't make a noise when they're shaken, called Denex rounds.
Yes.
And some dummy rounds look exactly like live rounds, correct?
Yes.
And those look exactly like live ammunition, fair?
Yes.
And those type of exact replica dummy rounds were on the set of Rust, right?
Yes.
And those were Seth Kenny's dummy rounds, right?
Yes.
And in terms of identifying dummy rounds by shaking them, right, which is something you talked about on direct, some of them are louder than others, right?
Yes.
Some of them have one BB or two BBs in them or three BBs in them, right?
Yes.
Sometimes if you shake a bullet, you can hear the powder, or because of oxidation, you can hear things inside of a bullet when you shake it, right?
Yes.
And depending on the setting of something would impact the person's ability to hear it. Isn't that fair?
Yes.
So, right, if I shook a dummy round right now in a courtroom in front of a microphone, right, it would probably be, you would be able to hear it. Would you agree?
Yes.
But if people are all moving around in a movie set, you don't know that everybody would be able to hear it. Isn't that fair?
Oh, come on.
Not everyone. No.
And some dummy rounds don't shake at all. Isn't that also true?
Yes.
It's ridiculous.
The only way to determine definitively is to send them to the FBI and to take apart the dummy round to figure out what the powder is inside of it, right?
The powder inside of a dummy round,
Yeah, I'm
or the
moving
ball
on to-
bearings.
Well, the ball bearings versus the powder that could be in a live ammunition.
Yes,
right?
that would be the comparison. Yes.
And so, one of the questions that I'm going to ask you is there different grades of gunpowder used in blanks versus live rounds?
I do not know the answer to that question.
And so, as you proceed in this case, you are then executing the prop truck search at the scene of Rust, right?
Yes.
So about a week after the incident, approximately, you go back to the setting of Rust and you execute a search warrant on the truck that housed the prop cart that you found the shell casing on, right?
Yes.
And when you went to do that search warrant, it was light outside,
Correct.
and you were with your fellow officers, Hancock, Kano, Sergeant Zook was there, correct?
Yes.
And you had a good working relationship with all of these people, right?
Yes.
And Detective Hancock and Kano, signed off on what you collected as detectives involved in this, right?
Yes.
And Sergeant Zook, who was their supervisor, signed off as well. Fair?
Yes.
And there was a witness there that day that assisted law enforcement with the search of the prop truck, right?
Yes.
a man named Seth Kenny.
Correct.
And not only did he assist, he actually was the one that opened the safe, right?
Yes, he had the combination too.
Well, do you know how he got the combination?
He was the owner of the safe.
You sure about that?
That was my understanding.
You collected dozens of guns from the safe, right?
Yes.
And you understood that there were a dozen plus actors, extras, stuntmen that used firearms on the set of Rust.
Yes.
Just like we talked about with Mr. Ackles and his bandolier, right? A lot of these actors may have at one point or another, unbeknownst to them, God forbid, had live ammunition on them, right?
Yes.
And the prop truck, we can look at A13, was a little disorganized. I don't know if it's quite at the level of the cart, but it was a little disorganized, right?
Yes.
Okay, and we'll just show A14 for completeness. And inside the prop truck, there were boxes, right?
Yes.
Boxes of ammunition.
Correct.
And these boxes are sort of, a lot of them are the same shape, make, model, white box, right?
Yes.
And I'm just going to show you 816, which is a close-up. And do you notice one box that looks a little different than the other boxes?
Yes, there is.
And which box is that?
The box in the center, instead of it being stamped, it has handwritten in blue marker, dummy rounds 45 LC.
Right, and I'll just blow up that, which is in the state's exhibits, exhibit 19, right?
Yes.
And you don't know who wrote that writing on it, do you?
Seth Kenny.
And if we could look at A22, can you tell us what that is?
Out of context, no, I can't.
Okay, well then we're going to look at A23.
Can you move it up? Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. This is the rounds that were inside of that box with the styrofoam insert that were removed.
Okay. And you see that they are Starline brass, nickel, dummy rounds, right?
Yes.
And again, the difference between a Starline brass nickel-plated dummy round and a live round is effectively that one has powder inside and the other does not, right?
Yes.
And do you know where all the ones in this box went, the ones that are missing?
I do not.
So we're in the prop truck and you have Starline brass, you have nickel primer, but they're not live, right?
Correct.
And you don't know when that box ended up getting to the prop truck, moved to the prop truck. You don't know any of that background, right?
Right.
You don't know if somebody placed that box with the handwriting on it into that Mary Kay bag, do you?
No.
And on the prop truck that housed all the ammunition, was there any live ammunition on the prop truck?
No.
So I want to ask you something, Investigator Popple. Did that surprise you?
No, not necessarily.
Well, you've got all this, you're finding these live rounds all over the set, right?
Yes.
Sort of seem to be a little bit of everywhere without much cohesion between where you're finding them, right?
Yes.
And they're housed originally in the prop truck, right?
Yes.
And so you go a week later to the prop truck, which has all the ammunition, right?
Yes.
And there's not a single live round there, right?
Correct.
Why did law enforcement wait a week to go to the prop truck?
The search warrant needed to be written. I'm not sure of why the time difference occurred exactly.
Okay. You, well, I mean, the search warrant for the church that we talked about on the 21st, you guys were able to do in one day, right? The same day that the incident happened, you did the search warrant on the church, right?
We did it the next day.
Well, you got the warrant on the 21st, you did it the 22nd. Is that fair?
Yes.
I apologize. So if you could do a search warrant in one day for one thing, why does it take 7 days to do a search warrant for something else?
I do not know the circumstances of why there was that time frame.
She's a
And
criminologist.
so on direct examination,
her area.
you pointed out that, and this is states 30. You said that these were the Seth Kenny dummies in the box, right?
Yes.
And you talked about that a bit on direct examination, right?
Correct.
And I think you were making a point that Seth Kenny's dummies like look a little bit different than the live ammunition found on set. So perhaps there was a way to distinguish them. Was that the import of your testimony?
Yes.
But if you look at the picture of the Seth Kenny box as it's being opened, right? How many rounds are in there?
So there are 17.
So then how do you explain why there's more rounds in your picture of those dummies taken out of the box?
If I can refer to my report to refresh my memory.
It's fine with me, Your Honor.
Carmen Doyle is saying he's dragging this too long. I agree. Cookies is asking, oh my God, what is his point? I would also like to know that. Oh. So it appears that the jury instructions, I think there's, this state is going to have a really big problem with this. Larry is reporting the language says
Refresh your recollection.
Yes.
that his act was committed purposefully and volitionally, which is ridiculous because it's
Yes,
manslaughter.
so I
It doesn't require
apologize.
intent.
The photo that was just up of the 22 rounds
I can't wait to talk
were
about
actually
this.
removed from a bandolier that was located inside of the prop truck.
Defense 826, right?
Yes.
And it has the exact number as the picture you showed the jury, right?
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, the real picture of the ammunition that comes out of Seth Kenny's box is this one, A27, right?
Yes.
And I saw you counting.
I just wanted to make sure the number of rounds.
Fair enough. No, I think that's a good way to that's how I figured it out. That's the right one, though, right?
Yes.
And there's something important about this picture, isn't there?
Yes, Castro Valley. He's table pounding. Definitely, he is pounding the table.
Doesn't that Seth Kenny round look exactly like the live round?
Under a camera flash, I suppose it could.
Well, I don't know about suppose it could. I mean, we'll look at the shell casing, Exhibit 28. Then we'll go back. 827. We can go back. States 28.
Manslaughter does not
Don't you
require
think they look
intent.
an awful lot alike.
They look similar, yes, but I can still see differences.
Well,
Especially
you're a
involuntary
trained
manslaughter.
investigator, right?
I'm trained crime scene tech, yes.
Even more than an investigator or crime scene tech, right?
Correct.
You have your Nikon 700 flash in your camera, right?
Yes.
You have the opportunity to take this ammunition back to the precinct, lay it out, and photograph it, right?
Can we
Yes.
You have no reason to think anybody on the set of Rust was able to do that, do
turn
you?
down the volume?
No.
Please stop yelling. Ugh, the feedback from that microphone is awful.
You turned in your report in this investigation. Hancock signed off on it, correct?
My supervisor signed off on my report.
Sergeant Zucker?
At the time, yes.
So we're still on the topic of the ammunition, and you and law enforcement were trying to figure out the source of the live ammunition, correct?
Yes.
In fact, it was incumbent upon you to try to find the source, because if there were people sending live ammunition to movie sets, that would be very dangerous condition, wouldn't it be?
Yes.
Scott, in the comments, I
And-
appreciate what you're saying. Thank you for clarifying.
As you were going about your search,
I disagree.
Seth Kenny actually walked into the precinct one day and gave you ammunition, right?
Yes,
Okay, you remember that, right?
I do.
That was
On the basis of negligence, I disagree.
did
But
you
I
think
respect and
Mr. Kenny
appreciate
was
your
being
point of
helpful?
view.
I believe so, yes.
I mean, were you suspicious at all of that?
That was not my place to be suspicious of him. I hadn't had much interaction with him.
Yeah, I mean, it may not have been your place to, but I'm just asking you if after this point, Seth Kenny, comes knocking on the precinct and shows you all some rounds, whether or not that
Asked and answered.
Seriously,
I don't
dude.
believe it was.
Overruled.
I'm just asking whether it's your place to be or not. I'm just asking when the man showed up and just presented ammunition to the precinct, did that make you suspicious at all?
No,
Well, let me ask you this. I bet it didn't surprise you that he didn't turn in the exact matching lethal ammunition, did it?
no, I wasn't surprised by that.
Okay. And so what he turned in, and now you have your report there if you need to refresh, but he walks into the precinct, and this is Seth Kenny.
The problem with the jury instruction
And
is
he
something
gives
I
you
look forward
two
to hearing from
different
Larry.
Types of shell casings or ammunition, right? He
I think the
gives
state
you
will argue it though.
Starline brass. He gives you spent shell casings, right?
Yes,
And those were Starline brass, nickel primer, but they weren't live, right? They had been shot or they were spent shell casings, right?
if I can refer to my report to refresh. I don't recall if any of them were Starline brass.
If you turn to the last page,
Is there a specific item number that you're referring to?
item set, I think 215. You're going to be better at determining these reports than me.
Yes,
Okay. And he brought you, again, he also gave you live ammunition with nickel primers, but they weren't Starlight brass, right?
yes,
Okay. So he just seems to have, he just missed sort of on what you were looking for, right?
yes.
Because you were,
Yeah, objection to the form of question. She doesn't know what Seth Kinney's motives are.
No, I don't, I don't,
What he's
overruled.
Really?
I mean, you know that if Seth Kenny provided the live ammunition to the set, that's worse for Seth Kenny, right?
It's worse for whoever provided it. Yes,
I agree.
But was he
So, but
charged?
as members of law enforcement, you all know that the person who provided that would have a motive to not be found. True.
yes,
So you headed to execute a search warrant at Seth Kenny's prop house, right?
yes,
And a judge signed off on that search warrant, correct?
yes,
Because you had probable cause to believe that there was live ammunition that matched the ammunition that killed Miss Hutchins, right?
yes,
And this was you and again, Detective Hancock and Sergeant Zook, right?
yes.
And yeah, I wanted to ask you, how come you executed the search warrant at night?
I don't recall.
And I wanted to ask you, how come Detective Kano waits outside?
I don't believe that Detective Kano was there the entirety of the search warrant.
So, well, while he was there, Do you know why? Do you have any information as to why he didn't come inside?
I do not.
Before you went on the search, you discussed it with Detective Hancock, correct?
Yes.
And just like the truck we talked about, you all had done nothing to secure this prop house while before you got the search warrant, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And tell the jury, how long did you wait to execute the search warrant at the prop house?
I don't recall.
Well, on direct examination, you knew the dates right away. Don't you remember? You nailed it.
Oh,
10/27, November 30th. Right?
I apologize. I thought you were asking from when it was written to when it was executed.
Oh, no, I apologize. Yes.
We executed the search warrant on November 30th.
Okay. So that was a month and a week at least, right? After the incident in question.
Yes.
And just like the truck, you're executing the search warrant, and who was there to help you?
Seth Kenny.
And your purpose was to find the matching ammunition, correct?
Our purpose was to locate any .45 caliber live ammunition.
Well, sure, but the ultimate investigation that you all were conducting was to try to solve the open question of how the lethal round got on a movie set, right?
Yes.
And you talked a little bit about this when we talked about the prop cart, how the disorganization of it could lead to commingling, right?
Yes.
How was the organization of the prop house?
Some things were organized and some were not.
Well, if you could give us a sense, did you find it to be more organized than the cart or less organized than the cart?
I would say they were probably about equal.
And you knew, did you not, that a dummy round can be turned into a live round, and a live round can be turned into a dummy round, correct?
Yes.
So a person with spent shell casings or dummies, they could reuse them, correct?
Yes.
That would be economically efficient, right?
Yes.
And you knew as you enter this search that some of the ammunition on the set of Rust definitely came from Seth Kenny, right?
Yes.
He admitted that, right?
Correct.
There were invoices he didn't have much of a choice, correct?
Yes.
And you were also looking for tools that could be used to manufacture dummies and live ammunition, correct?
Yes.
And you were also looking for a green ammo can, correct?
Yes.
You know, the white boxes that we keep looking at are, they look like each other, right?
Correct.
A green ammo can is a more unique item, fair?
Yes.
So why don't you tell the jury why you were looking for a green ammo can?
I don't recall specifically, other than at some point in time it had housed live rounds.
And law enforcement had that information at the time of going to a judge to get the search warrant, and very much at the time that they were executing the warrant, right?
Yes.
And I don't want to belabor the white box conversation too much, but other than, I'm going to have to find it too, on the white boxes that you found at the set, and at the white boxes that you saw a lot of at Seth Kenny's, there were these initials in the middle of the white box that said JS. Right? I'll just show you A2. Yeah. Right, that you found at the scene, correct?
Yes.
And if we look inside of Seth Kenny's prop house, A18, you see very similar font and signage, correct?
Yes.
And as you continue on in your search, you understood Seth Kenny was a person of interest, correct?
Yes.
And this was an important moment in the case, correct?
Yes.
And you even found out that the day before Seth Kenny provided the dummies to Rust, he had in his possession live Starline brass nickel primer from 1883, correct?
I don't recall it being the day before, or having that information personally.
Well, so let's leave the day before right now. You knew and understood that Seth Kenny had recently been in possession of Starline brass nickel primer live, correct?
I don't know that it was that specific, just that he was in possession of live ammunition in a recent point.
Now, when you testified on direct examination, you told the jury about how you found some live ammo at the prop house, right?
Yes,
And how you took that live ammo and sent it to the FBI, right?
yes,
And you sent the live ammo from the set of rust to the FBI, right?
yes,
And you're not an FBI agent, but what you told the jury was that when you compared the powder from the set of rust's ammunition to Seth Kenny's live ammunition, they didn't look the same, right?
correct.
And you testified previously. Well, let me just ask you, did you take all of the 45 live ammunition from PDQ into evidence?
Yes,
And did you search every single box inside of Seth Kenny's prop house?
yes.
And because you did that, according, is this still, what is that?
Finally, this is interesting. I just don't know if this is like a
Or just
third party
goes to sleep.
theory or what. I don't know if Seth, can somebody tell me in chat, was Seth Kenny charged with anything?
And because you've told this jury now that you found every 45 live ammo there, correct?
Yes,
And that you searched every single box, correct?
yes,
What you're telling this jury is they can be sure that if there was a live round on there that matched the set of rust, you would have found it, right?
yes.
Let's take a look at A19. Is that
Seth made a
one of
deal.
the rooms inside of the prop house?
You took a
Yes.
plea. Okay.
You see those boxes packed
Thank
all
you.
the way to the ceiling?
Yes.
Did you all have a ladder or anything when you guys were searching?
No.
Okay. So can we agree that you didn't search the boxes at the top?
I believe they were taken down or at least looked into. It was not just myself searching.
Right. Well, we talked about it. It was Kana was outside. It was you and Hancock and Zook, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, tell the jury. I mean, did you or did you not search every single one of those boxes?
We searched the entirety of the property. Yes.
Well, what do you mean when you say that you searched the entirety of the property?
I mean, if a box is opened and it is clear that there's no ammunition in it, meaning if I open a box and it's all clothing and I look at the bottom of the box and it's all clothing, then we're not going to dump the box out on the floor and continue to shake it until rounds that aren't in there fall out.
But okay, sure. Were there any boxes like that?
There were a multitude of boxes.
Got it. So, are you telling this jury that you're on your oath that you searched every single box in this room? That's just all I want to know.
Not me personally. Our team reasonably searched the warehouse.
Okay, and I think we're getting closer to, when you say reasonably searched, what do you mean by that?
I mean, how would you approach searching this kind of area?
Well, I can tell you that law enforcement, I know from the movies. Okay, I'll move on. Well, why don't you tell me, what's a grid search?
A grid search is usually conducted outside, where you would reasonably set up in a way that you could grid an area and then search each section on that grid.
Okay, and well, why don't you tell me, what would have been, if you wanted to be certain, the best way to search this room if you had unlimited resources and time?
I believe that when we searched this room, we divided the room in order for it to be searched.
Divided it how?
Meaning myself took one section, Sergeant Zook took another section, Detective Hancock took another section.
Are you certain of that, or are you best estimate that that's what your memory tells you?
I do not recall exactly how the room was searched.
Okay, and then let's say you open up a box with ammunition. How would you search an individual box?
It would depend on the box.
So tell me.
If we open a box and it's all 38s, we're not looking for 38s at that time. We're looking for 45s.
Okay. And so if you opened up a box and it was commingled rounds, how would you do it?
We would have to go through those rounds individually.
Right, and there were boxes like that here, right?
There were a few, yes.
Okay. And how many rooms were there inside of this location that had lots of boxes in them?
There was the back room that we see here. There was a front room that didn't have many boxes, and then a side room that had nicely organized boxes.
And what about the bathroom? Aren't there boxes and ammunition in the bathroom?
There were boxes in the bathroom, yes.
So 4 rooms, right?
Yes.
3 of you, 4 rooms, right?
Yes.
820. What are we looking at here, Investigator Pablo?
This was a table that was located in the side room.
Okay, and what do you notice? I don't know why that arrow's there. What do you notice on this? It's probably because of me. What do you notice on this table of? Thank you, sir. What's on this table? What is this?
There were plastic bags, tools, cleaning products, tape.
Okay, and as we talked about before, the search warrant told you to look for tools, right?
Yes.
Okay, and Detective Hancock spent some time in this room during the search, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
And do you know what all these tools are? Do you have familiarity with these tools?
I'm not. No.
Okay, you don't know what they can be done. You don't know how they can be used with either firearms or ammunition, do you?
No.
Okay, so tell the members of the jury which of these tools you seized.
We did not take any tools from the warehouse.
When you were searching this area, did you have a schematic or a floor plan?
No, I don't believe so.
Did you go one room at a time or did you split up?
I don't recall.
Was there a predetermined plan of how to search this and to confirm that there were no further live bullets?
The predetermined plan was that I went in myself first and did overall photographs of everything in place, and then we conducted the search.
Did you do those letters like we saw in the prop truck so you could keep track of everything? Remember when we were looking in the church that there were those letters up so that you could sort of keep track and make sure you got everything? Did you use those letters?
No, I did not.
And of course, Seth Kenny was there and being helpful again, right?
Yes.
He told you that there were no 45 long Colts there and offered to show you the dummy rounds at one point. Do you remember that?
I don't recall that.
Do you remember him saying, I bet you $1,000 there's no 45 long Colts in there?
I do recall that, yes.
Okay. And did he win the bet?
He did not.
He lost the bet. So he tells you that, and law enforcement continues, and you look in the bathroom, and you found them, right?
Yes.
Let me ask you something. At any point, did you become suspicious of Seth Kenny?
No.
A21. You were able to find this container that says live ammo on it, right?
Yes.
And that was helpful to whoever wrote that to show you where the live ammo was, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's one of the reasons you looked in that bin. Somebody labeled it live, right?
Well, we were looking in all of those bins, yes.
Every single.
I believe there was camera equipment stacked on top of it.
Right.
And when they're opened and you see that it's camera equipment, we close it back up and went to the box on the bottom that stated there was live ammo in it.
Doesn't this handwriting and label look kind of like that dummy round label we saw on the box that had that round you and I looked at? States 19.
Yes, it is similar, yes.
And that box that had the live rounds in it, there were a couple things that you found in PDQ.
Bless you. This handwriting is getting worse. Right? At PDQ, you found, and that's the prop house. That's the name of the prop house, right?
Yes,
Okay. You found, bless you, Starline Brass Live, no nickel, and you found Starline, you found nickel primer lives, no Starline Brass, right?
correct.
Every time you were with Seth Kenny, you got close to finding something that matched the scene, Starline Brass, nickel primer live, but it was always one off, wasn't it?
Yes,
And as you continued on your search, you found the green ammo can, right?
yes,
And again, it was helpfully labeled, right?
yes. I believe it was behind that box. I think you weren't able to obviously see it.
I see. But it also had a helpful label on it, didn't it?
Yes,
It said empty, right?
yes,
And it looks a lot like the handwriting in States 19 and the helpful handwriting at A21 that says live, right?
yes.
And it was taking a long time to go through those boxes, wasn't it?
Yes,
And Detective Hancock was wearing her lapel camera, right?
I believe so. Yes,
Have you reviewed that camera?
I have not.
You remember you and you said to Detective Hancock, you know, this is taking a long time. We really need a spa day.
Objection relevance?
What's relevant?
The-
What's
the- the
relevant?
relevance
Does it
is
have
that
any
it's-
more tendency to,
Sure.
What?
I'm
Spa
going to
day.
suspend the objection.
Okay. Did you and Detective Hancock start joking around that it was going to take too long to search every box?
I don't recall that.
Do you deny it?
No.
And there are times in this search where you pick up a box and you just shake the whole box, right?
I don't recall that.
Can we play that video?
What do you guys think? Is this effective? This is the first time I've seen Spyro.
Or is he impeaching?
It doesn't matter. It's just a video. It's not a statement.
No, it does matter because she said she doesn't recall.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Do you deny you in parts of your search just picking up a box and shaking it to see if it shook or not? Do you deny that?
No.
And so, but if you shook an entire box to see if it had a rattle in it, you wouldn't be able to be sure whether or not every single live round, it was all live rounds or a commingled group, correct?
Correct.
In fact, that's the entire basis of the case of what you believe the armor agent have done. Commingled, live, and dummies, right?
Yes.
And yet at the search being conducted to find the source of the lethal round, law enforcement is doing the very same thing that you're complaining about the armorer doing on the set, right?
Yes.
And when you left that search, you are not, as you sit here, sure you got every live round, are you?
No.
And actually, if you look at the boxes
Larry says this is
inside of
working
that
on the
location,
jury.
you
They're
didn't
looking at
even
him, not
search
her.
half of them. Did you?
I don't recall.
She's not a hostile witness because this is cross-examination. If she
So then
were
why
refusing to
on
cooperate
direct
with the state, she'd be
examination
hostile.
You do not recall. Did the prosecutor ask you, and you tell this jury that you were confirming that you searched and found every single live round? Why did you testify to that?
I found what I believe to be all the live rounds at the warehouse.
But that's not what you said. What you said was that you found every live round, right?
I don't recall the exact words that I stated.
This is
Well, you
effective.
certainly said that you searched every single box just 10 minutes ago in front of this jury, right?
I believe that a reasonable search was conducted of the warehouse.
an investigator, I understand you were prepped before you testified today, correct?
I spoke with the prosecution before I testified yesterday.
Okay. And the jury heard something about pre-trial interviews where you're interviewed and the defense can be there to watch you be interviewed, right?
Yes,
But every time you talk to the prosecutors, defense is not there, correct?
correct.
In fact, the vast majority of times you speak to the prosecutors, the defense is not there, correct?
Correct.
In fact, you and I had never met before today, or yesterday, I guess, correct?
Yes.
So you just said, when you originally said that you searched every box, okay, that itself is not accurate, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So now what you're saying
He's
is
getting it. Yeah.
that you did a reasonable search, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the other thing that the search warrant asked you to take was the cameras and the camera equipment, the surveillance footage from PDQ, right?
I don't recall that.
The jury's taking copious notes right now, according to Larry.
I'm going to
They are
pass up
very
the warrant
compelled
to
by
refresh
Spiro's
your
questioning.
recollection. Well, do you recall that there was camera equipment there?
There was lots of camera equipment inside of the warehouse.
In fact, you remember Seth Kenny showed you the camera equipment, right?
I don't recall exactly.
Okay, I'm just going to mark this as defense Z and just approach just quickly.
Yeah, this is taking a turn. I was not impressed with Spiro before. He is turning that around for me. The jury is very attentive. They are taking copious notes, and they are paying attention to Spiro. And the witness does not look good.
Are you going to mark that? Well, she's going to identify it and then you're going to.
I'm just going to see if it refreshes. Does that refresh your recollection about the?
He was just rusty the first day. Ha ha ha. Very funny.
No,
It's actually
it
pretty good.
doesn't.
We are the jury.
Take it back. And I'm going to pass you the warrant and ask you, this is DX23.
People are asking how this proves anything
Recollection of if you were supposed to.
about Alec. It's not meant to. It's supposed to.
Yes, Your Honor, DX23.
Remember how in Karen
Oh.
Reed, the state's investigation was called into question?
I need to know.
No. We need to.
If the state investigators weren't thorough,
Just to refresh,
if they lied, if they were inconsistent, that's a
Why are
problem.
we marking it?
Yeah, why are
Big
we
problem for the
marking it?
state.
Then I will mark it.
Yes.
Unmarked.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not seeking to introduce this. I'm just simply asking, does this refresh your recollection that the warrant commanded you to take the video footage?
18 months maximum, like Hannah Gutierrez Reed.
Number 6.
She can refresh her memory without being directed.
Of surveillance footage, yes.
Okay. And so, can you tell the jury, did you take the surveillance footage?
No.
Spiro's doing his job. He's doing it very well. He's poking holes in what the state has presented as unrefutable
You
evidence.
didn't take the surveillance footage, even though that footage could have shown when people came and left the prop house, correct?
I don't recall if there was surveillance footage.
And the photograph of Mr. Kenny showing the surveillance footage didn't refresh your memory?
No, because I'm standing in the foreground of that photo.
Okay, well, tell the members of the jury what you did to search for surveillance videos that satisfied you that you would comply with the warrant's order. Tell the jury.
I don't recall looking for surveillance footage.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Because you didn't, right?
I don't recall.
But if you did, it would be on the lapel cameras of Detective Hancock and Sergeant Zook, right?
Yes.
And so if it's not on the lapel cameras of Detective Hancock and Sergeant Zook, you would agree with me it didn't happen, right?
Not precisely. They don't follow me around the entire time, and I don't wear a lapel, so it could have not been captured.
But you're not telling this jury that you looked for it, right?
I'm saying that I don't recall looking for it.
And if you had taken that footage if any there were, right? You agree with me that it would have shown when people were coming and going from the prop house, potentially, correct?
That's a possibility, yes.
It's a possibility you could have seen when the ammo can got there, right?
Possibly, yes.
You could have seen Sarah Zachary picking up the ammunition, correct?
Possibly, yes.
You could have seen Seth Kenny disposing of ammunition in the 40 days between when the incident happened and when you arrived, correct?
Possibly, yes.
And there's one other thing that it would have shown, isn't there?
I don't know.
Well, it would have shown whether or not you all really searched the place, wouldn't it have?
Possibly, yes.
And so you didn't take it. You did not voucher any of the surveillance footage.
I do not recall looking for the surveillance footage.
Well, again, I know that answer, but you know what you vouchered in this case, correct?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
You didn't take into your custody and add to the evidence any surveillance footage, correct?
No.
And you never spoke to any witnesses, you yourself, about what you found at PDQ later, did you?
No.
And you testified on direct examination that you did collect DNA, phones, prints, things like that in this case, right?
Yes.
And you got the armorer, the first assistant director, Dave Hall's, Sarah Zachary, and Alec Baldwin's phones, right?
I did not. I don't believe so.
You ultimately vouchered?
I would have to refer to my report. I don't believe I collected all of those things.
Okay. What about DNA extractions?
I did collect DNA swabs from certain individuals, yes.
Okay. Including Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, Dave Halls, Sarah Zachary, Alec Baldwin?
Not Alec Baldwin, but the rest.
Okay. And what about prints, fingerprints?
Yes.
Okay. From Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, Dave Halls, Sarah Zachary?
Yes.
Okay. Did you take the cell phone of Seth Kennedy?
I don't believe so, no.
Did you take the prints of Seth Kennedy?
No.
Did you take the DNA of Seth Kennedy?
No.
Everything that you did take into your custody, in law enforcement's custody in this case, is in your supplemental report. Is that fair?
Yes.
And most importantly of all, it's your testimony you never were able to discover the source of the live ammunition, correct?
I don't believe that's in my supplemental report. I'm not sure how you're phrasing that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. I'm asking you. When we started, we were talking about solving this question of how a live round got in a movie set. Remember that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm asking you, trying to solve that question, did you ever solve it?
I do not have any physical evidence to show where the live rounds originated from.
And I was asking you questions earlier about how come the search happened at night, right?
Yes.
Do you remember?
I don't recall.
Okay. Why Detective Cano stood outside?
I don't recall.
Okay. Isn't the truth that you were just trying to get this over with so that the prosecutors could focus on Alec Baldwin?
No.
Ooh.
You
That's
personally
intense.
believe Alec Baldwin committed no crime. Isn't that the truth?
No.
Your Honor, please, can we approach?
I think he's pushing it a little, but I think he's very effective. And according to Larry, the
Don't
jury
do
is
that. I'm going to strike that.
eating out of the palm of his
question,
hand.
okay?
So
I'm going to strike the question. You're going to disregard it, okay, and the answer.
that was improper.
The-
Her
the-
personal beliefs don't matter here.
There is zero evidence in this case that Alec Baldwin brought a live round onto set, correct?
Correct.
There is zero evidence in this case that Alec Baldwin loaded that live round into that gun, right?
Correct.
And after this, and you turn to the next chapter of this case, is when the order came from you all, meaning you, the prosecutors, Detective Hancock, to order the testing on the firearm, right?
I'm sorry. Can you
Sure.
repeat that?
Wasn't a good question. As this case moved forward, after what we just discussed, you, Detective Hancock and the prosecutors, made the request to the FBI to order the accidental discharge test, right?
I don't recall when that request was made.
I wonder why the air quotes.
Well, forget exactly
A little
when it was
mocking.
made. Do you have any general recollection?
I don't.
Okay. Are you testifying that you don't know whether it was after the PDQ search?
I don't recall.
And at that time, when that test was ordered, you knew that Mr. Baldwin had told you that he had just pulled the hammer of the gun and not the trigger, correct?
I don't recall.
Okay. I'm going to refresh your recollection.
Are you guys liking Spyro a little better now? I kind of am.
Need to find it.
Regardless of my feelings about this case, he's doing good defense work. This is very good
And while
lawyering.
I'm doing that, you did assist in the taking of the firearm withdrawal. You were involved in the requests coming from the team, right? I'm referring to you, the prosecutors, Detective Hancock, right? You understand when I say team, what I mean?
Yes.
Okay. You were involved in the request from the team to the FBI about
Agreed,
what tests to
General.
order throughout this case. Isn't that true?
Yes.
And these were very much group decisions that you made. Of what you would test, fair?
Yes.
And everywhere in this case that you went, Detective Hancock went, right?
Yes.
So when you were at the church, the day that it happened, Detective Hancock was there, right?
Yes.
And then, when you were at the truck search, she was there, right?
Yes.
In the precinct with Seth Kennedy, she was there, right?
Yes.
At the PDQ search, she was there, right?
Yes.
And every time something happened in this case, you all would meet with the prosecutors and keep them updated, correct?
Occasionally, yes.
Well, what do you say occasionally, Investigator Powell? What do you mean by occasionally?
I mean that I was not always in direct contact with them about every single thing that would occur.
I'm going to
She doesn't look
show
good.
the witness.
This is a very good cross. I'm impressed by this cross.
I don't know what line you're looking at. You told me I have a copy. I'm assuming it's the previous transcript.
It is
I am looking forward to the state
Again,
rehabilitating her, but I don't know if they're going to do a good job.
the body worn camera from 10/21/21.
Page and line, please.
Page 3, line 1.
I agree, Soupy.
Same objection, Your Honor.
What is it?
Ms. Popple is not Ms. Popple is not in this transcript.
She
Well,
was there.
what are you doing? Asking her to refresh her memory?
She was there. I'm asking if it refreshes her recollection.
All right. Overruled.
Remember, we have 8 days of trial, y'all. This is only day 2. Anything could happen. But so far, right
Does that
now,
refresh your recollection
defense is doing pretty great.
about what Mr. Baldwin told you at the scene?
Not particularly.
Okay. Would it be helpful if you saw the video from the lapel camera of you and Mr. Baldwin at the scene and listened to it? Would that be helpful?
No.
That wouldn't be helpful to you, Investigator Powell?
I'm not denying that these statements were made, but I do not recall all of the information that was being stated at that time.
I understand that, but you're here to do your best, right?
Yes.
And you want to be fair to Mr. Baldwin, right?
Yes.
So you don't know that if I show you the video of you at the scene, it won't refresh your recollection?
He's a little argumentative, but Larry's saying as Morrissey continues to object and asks Spyro to clarify which page and line he's on, apparently a couple of jurors smiled at him. Larry says, "This is the first time I saw a positive sign from the jury towards Spyro. He's balancing the scales, finally." I agree. I mean, I'm really seeing a big turnaround here. I didn't like him at first, but, I was confident that at some point, okay, I wasn't confident. I was hoping that he would prove me wrong because I like when people prove me wrong. And sometimes it just takes a little while to get into the groove of a trial. It's a very complex trial. There have been a lot of motions, a lot of things going on behind the scenes, tons of discovery to go through. And this witness is not looking authentic. She's not looking sincere. She's not looking honest. She looks like she has hidden things, lied about things. That doesn't look good for the state. It looks like they're obfuscating, and
Investigator Popple,
I don't know how they're going to rehabilitate her.
to watch the body worn camera, the lapel from 10/21 to refresh your recollection at break?
Yes.
Okay. And you would agree with me, it may refresh your recollection, true?
Yes.
And whatever information you had from Mr. Baldwin at the time, well, let me ask you this. Withdrawn. Did you tell Mr. Baldwin, don't worry, we're going to find the source of the live ammunition, or words to that effect?
I don't recall stating that.
You don't deny it, though, do you?
No.
You and the team end up ordering the accidental discharge test, I think you called it the drop test, on the firearm in question, right?
Yes.
And when you all ordered that test, the FBI told you that this test may very well destroy the gun, right?
I don't recall that.
Okay, well, let's,
Well, we know that it did. So
I'm going to show you an email in a minute.
every time she says, I don't recall that, she looks worse.
But you do agree with me that you were involved in the team's decision to send that firearm off to the FBI for that testing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. That firearm that you told me earlier in my examination was something that you were entrusted to keep track of and to protect, right?
Yes.
A piece of evidence that you knew was critical in this case, correct?
Yes.
And the FBI told you in no uncertain terms that if they do this test on the firearm, it would alter the condition of the firearm, correct?
I don't recall that.
Okay.
I disagree. Because a dirty
We're gonna pass up
investigation
an
is a
email to
problem.
you because I can't show you on the screen, I don't think.
OJ Simpson was acquitted because of a dirty
We can't
police
show you on the screen,
investigation.
apparently.
And I'm not saying this is dirty, but it doesn't look good, and she does not look honest. She's the state's witness. Her credibility is under fire.
Well,
You can find it. Listen, you can look at it too. So just come up here before.
So I appreciate your input, but I respectfully disagree.
I have it, right? Okay, we have it.
They have it.
Are we doing it?
That's an issue for the
I'm
jury.
just gonna pass up.
Okay, but I need to look.
It's just, you know, you know.
No, there's a.
All right. So now that we have audio cut off, Larry has been tweeting. He says, Spyro is making her voice crack. She's falling apart at the seams. Now the jury is starting to eat out of Spyro's hand. I'm happy to see Spyro finally landing some touchdowns.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay,
Wait,
I
she
have not
has to-
reviewed this. Okay, can I have a second?
Yes.
The dirty investigation issue aside, says Crosby Rowe, the defense is at least showing that there was a lot of confusion over live ammo. If it was an improperly conducted investigation, and if there was somebody who brought a live round who is not being identified, there are problems with that. Too many I can't recalls. I agree, my friend. I'm not even going to try to pronounce your name. I'll try. D. Greer, TB12, hashtag Foxborough. Okay. Thank you for that. I agree.
What is the portion of the email? that
She's
you
obfuscating and it looks bad.
To refresh your memory.
Do you all want to be on the recording for this? Let's just,
Point out to me how this is
Well,
supposed to
first of all-
refresh your memory.
Can you? I don't like it.
she can look at the whole document and see if it refreshes her memory,
That's
okay?
exactly what I was
Move
going to
on.
do.
This is where Morrissey's personality issues come into play. I think the jury might start to like Spyro a little.
Address on that email.
And so Morrissey,
Yes, I do.
you know, her personality might get in the way.
Of course, I just
A little
wanted
bit
to point
here.
everybody else.
No, Spyro's doing an excellent job. He is completely busting this open. Anything he can do to make the state's witness look bad, that's a point for Baldwin. Okay, so Cookies is asking, connect the dots for me. How does finding the source live ammo, what does that have to do with Alec Baldwin pulling the trigger? It doesn't. But if the state is obfuscating and lying, then they didn't conduct a proper investigation. And if the investigation was improper, then Alec Baldwin, his questions about his responsibility and his culpability, the eyes are now going to be shifting over to the state. Why wasn't the state honest about this? Why did this investigator
Does that
lie?
refresh your recollection?
Why doesn't she remember important
Yes.
things?
Okay.
There are facts at issue here. So it's not about the material element here. It's about the witnesses the state is bringing forth and their credibility, their honesty. And if they don't seem credible, then the jury is going to
And
raise an
it is
eyebrow at that,
true.
at the very
Right, you're
least.
on this email, correct?
Yes.
I appreciate your question,
And
sincerely.
On April 21st, 2022, which is after the search of the prop house, you and the team sent the firearm for testing at the FBI, correct?
Yes.
I have a little more to say about it
I
later.
apologize. I think I've been handed the wrong thing. Can we approach?
You
Okay.
can have my copy. I'll take yours then.
Hang on. We need to approach.
Another
May we
reason that's
approach?
important is because the defense can make an argument that the state was gunning for Baldwin and that they wanted to make an example of him because he's a rich actor and he's privileged, that they had bias against him and they were trying to get at him. Look at what happened in the O.J. Simpson trial. There was police corruption there. Absolutely there was. I'm not afraid to say it. They planted evidence. They fudged with things. You know, there were problems. And if they had conducted an above board investigation, perhaps he would have been convicted. But there were too many problems with the investigation, and the state is now looking as though they have it out for him. They have a personal vendetta against him, and it's not about the facts. It's not about whether he actually committed this manslaughter, crime. It's about them having a personal bias against him. And if they're state investigators, if the members of the police did not conduct an above board investigation, there could be corruption there. People could be fudging, the results of tests. They could be, changing things around. The FBI did conduct weapons tests that ended up destroying the weapon. And there are problems with that become more apparent the more we start to see that perhaps the state has a grudge or a vendetta against Baldwin. That's not how you're supposed to charge somebody with a crime. If somebody committed a crime, you're supposed to do everything above board. You shouldn't have investigators. I mean, you shouldn't have this woman, Marissa Popple, sitting on the stand and saying, I don't recall about some very key details, some very important facts. She clearly did not commit or did not conduct an above board investigation. There are problems with her testimony. She shouldn't have any reason to lie. She's supposed to be an agent of the state. And as an extension of the state, it is her duty to be completely forthcoming and honest. And she does not appear that way. And so because she's a state witness, she is now making the state look dishonest. She is an extension of their investigation. And so she represents something that might be rotten, might smell fishy. There might be something wrong here. And if I were a juror, I would be paying very close attention to this. I think Spyro is doing an amazing job. I'm changing my mind a little here. I still think that Baldwin, was negligent, but
interruption.
this is
I'm
big.
going to ask the court reporter to read back the exact same question.
And of course, no, it's not the O.J. Simpson case, but I'm using it as an analogy, my friend, Sam Diamond. It's a parallel. There are similarities. It's an example.
And on April 21st, 2022, which is after the search. Oh, I'm so sorry. And on April 21st, 2022, which is after the search of the prop house, you and the team sent the firearm for testing at the FBI, correct? Yes.
And that was truthful testimony and accurate testimony that you just gave, correct?
Yes.
And at the time that you sent it to the FBI for accidental discharge testing, which I believe you discussed on your direct examination, didn't you?
Yes.
So at the time you did that, you knew that the testing would cause this firearm.
Sorry.
So Larry is now tweeting and saying, today we have a shift in the courtroom. Spyro is the arbiter of the truth and facts, and Morrissey looks like she has something to hide. Fascinating turn of events. This makes me wonder, because in the pretrial motions that came up on Monday, the defense raised this issue. They claimed that over 1,100 pages of documents were not provided to them until very, very late in the game. I believe it was about a year after they requested them, very close to trial.
This testing was ordered.
Could that be a Brady issue? Let's find out.
That the firearm would no longer be in the same physical condition you recovered it in, correct?
Yes.
Let's take a break. Thank you.
All right. We're going to take our lunch break.
All right, we're at lunch.
Please don't talk among yourselves or anyone else about the evidence received here in court. And please don't come back until 2 o'clock.
Okay, so we have a long lunch today.
2.
Oh, man.
All right, we're
That was not good for the prosecution at all. I wanted to read a quick super chat from Time Lord Cloud for $5. Thank you for the super chat. Saying Spyro knows he can't win with the jury.
Yeah, as I indicated, we're just gonna provide a laptop.
And that he's setting up to win on appeals.
Thank you.
Okay. And I think at the time that you wrote this, that was probably true. Wait, hold on. But I think things have changed a little, my friend. All right. Let's talk a little bit before we fully break for lunch. So, B-Rad, another $4.99 super chat. Thank you very much. Is saying that Larry needs to do class action lawsuits. I will float that idea to him. Thank you. He might find that interesting. Wow, that was intense. I was not expecting Spyro to pull it out, but you can't get around it. That cross-examination was brutal. This witness looks like she has something to hide. She has made inconsistent statements on the stand. She has admitted that some of her statements were not correct. There are numerous elements of what she said that are problematic. I'm going to go through because I want to read you Larry's tweets because Larry's there. He's in the courtroom. He's watching how the jurors are reacting. And even though I was reading them sort of throughout, I think now that we're at a break, this is a good time to review them. So I might repeat a few, but this is important. So he says, at any point during your investigation, did you become suspicious of Seth Kenney? Asks Spyro. The witness says no. The jury doesn't react very much. If they did, it wasn't noticeable. Then when the witness admits that she's not sure she found all the live rounds on the set, the jury started listening really intently to Spyro. Some jurors are not even looking at the witness anymore. Amazing. He tweeted this 28 minutes ago. It's incredible how quickly things can turn around. When you said you searched every box, that was not accurate, correct? Correct, she said. Every juror is seen writing something down in their notepads. So that was a problem. She apparently did not look through all of the boxes. There were too many. And she joked about how it would take forever. So she did not conduct a thorough investigation, according to her own words. They didn't find other live rounds. I mean, she should have been looking through and scouring every single box. But apparently she didn't do her job properly. And that's a problem for this investigation because it was not thorough and it was not exhaustive. She did not meet the burden of her duties of fulfilling her, of doing her job correctly. Spyro is finally having some fireworks in the courtroom. He's making this witness look completely lazy, incompetent, and like a liar. Ladies and gentlemen, William Kunstler just showed up, says Larry. Looks like Spyro is trying to make Seth Kenney the guilty party. The jury appears attentive and listening. Some are seen writing things down in their notepads. He says there is zero evidence that Alec Baldwin either brought a live round to the set or loaded it into the gun, correct? Correct, says the witness. The jury is motionless, but a couple of jurors have their hands on their chins. Others are seen writing things down. And I think that the live round is, now that I think about it, now that I consider it more significantly, whoever brought the live round on set, that person is culpable. I'm going to mute this here. Or I'm going to just stop sharing the screen, rather. 1 second, y'all. Okay. Allow me to return to Larry's tweets. And thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for joining me. We are about to break for lunch, but I just wanted to finish reading through his commentary because I think that it's significant. And I'm going to say a couple things and then we can break for lunch. I'm going to talk to him when he comes back and we will have more for you for the afternoon. I'm really looking forward to resuming because this is really fiery and I really don't know how the state's going to rehabilitate her. This is kind of huge. Okay, so we established that there was zero evidence that Alec Baldwin brought a live round to set. And what I wanted to say about that is that that is the guilty party, whoever brought the live round, because if nobody brought a live round onto set, this accident wouldn't have occurred. Helena Hudgens very likely would not have died on set. Joel Souza would not have been shot. The live round is the difference. That is the point of significance. And I'm starting to see the defense's argument outlined a little more clearly. And he's doing a good job. I mean, I was very firmly anti-Baldwin yesterday, and now I'm kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm changing my mind a little bit. So Larry said 15 minutes ago, as Morrissey continues to object and asks Spiro to clarify which page and line he's on, a couple jurors smiled at him. This is the first time I saw a positive sign from the jury towards Spiro. He is balancing the scales finally. Spiro is making her voice crack. She's falling apart at the seams, and now the jury is starting to eat out of Spiro's hands. I'm happy to see Spiro finally landing some touchdowns. Today we finally have a shift in the courtroom. Spiro is the arbiter of truth and facts, and Morrissey looks like she has something to hide. Fascinating turn of events. So I know I repeated that a little bit, but I wanted to share that with you all kind of sequentially, because it just shows the shift from how things changed, and you can picture yourself in the courtroom watching things as they unfolded. So I don't know, you guys. What do you all think? Do you think that Spiro's questioning is effective? Does this witness look trustworthy? And what problems might this pose for the state? See, I understand a lot of you are still very staunchly, stuck on, well, what does this have to do with whether Baldwin pulled the trigger or not? It doesn't. But as I said earlier, something very important is that all of the state's witnesses look squeaky clean, that they are consistent, that they are honest, and that they conducted a thorough and exhaustive investigation. Because if they didn't, the problem is Alec Baldwin is a celebrity. This is high profile. And a lot of the time, you might be gunning for convicting a particular person, and it might have very little to do with whether that person is actually guilty or not. I don't have any affection toward Alec Baldwin. I do think he was incredibly negligent on this set, but I also don't think he was the only person who was responsible for Helena Hutchins' death. I also don't even think Hannah Gutierrez-Reed was, I don't think it was just two people. There were numerous people on that set that contributed to this accident occurring. So even though Baldwin was negligent, this is the interesting thing that came up earlier. So Larry had also tweeted earlier something I wanted to share with you that finally I get a chance to. He says, now I understand why Spiro keeps arguing intent on behalf of Alec Baldwin, because yesterday he filed his proposed jury instructions, and it's now clear that he intends to argue to Judge Summer that the jury must find Alec Baldwin's act was committed purposefully and volitionally. Now, I don't know if that shakes out with the way that the manslaughter statute is written. It doesn't seem right to me. Larry says, we'll see if she will keep that in the final instructions. This is critical for the defense, and that Morrissey will definitely object to this language as confusing to the jury. So we have that lined out here. Defendant's proposed instruction number blank, for you to find the defendant committed an act as defined under the first element of involuntary manslaughter, you must find that the state has proved to your satisfaction beyond a reasonable doubt that the act was committed purposefully and volitionally. So I guess it depends on how you define those words. But this is a cliffhanger. Things have really changed. I need to take that banner off. There we go. So that's where we stand. Spiro is turning things around. Things are starting to look a little better for the defense. I'm sure that the state will put up a good fight. But generally speaking, there have been some problems with Morrissey's style. I don't think that she is as likable as Spiro at this point. I think they were equally unlikable yesterday, but I think that that has now changed. And the jury is going to be more compelled by a successful line of questioning, of cross-examination, than just personality, obviously. Those jurors are taking their jobs very seriously. They are really paying attention to what is going on. They are very attuned to the defense attorney. And as Larry has stated in the past, part of his skill with jury observation, something that he knows to be true, which is, it makes a lot of sense, is that when you see the jury looking at the lawyer instead of the witness, you know that that lawyer is feeding them information that they find crucial and relevant to how they are going to be deliberating. And so when they're hanging on his every word, that's a good sign. That was what happened with Karen Reed, with Jackson and Yannetti. And now, as we all know, there are multiple jurors coming forward in the Karen Reed case to make statements that they would have acquitted. So clearly Jackson and Yannetti were successful. So that pattern has proven consistent. Let me see if any of you, you all are contributing some really interesting chats, and I just want to go through and see what we are saying. Lily Lem is saying, I think the individuals who walked off the set the day before set up what happened the next day. He has responsibility for holding the smoking gun. He disregarded the safety protocol. Guilty. That's fair. See, I still think he was highly negligent. And I think that negligence as a, I know there was a chatter here earlier who made an argument that you are required to have intent as an element of manslaughter, but that's not the way that it's written. Negligence is a necessary component of manslaughter. Oh, and Larry's back. So do you have anything that you'd like to say to the audience?
Ladies and gentlemen, William Kunstler just showed up. And I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about Alex Spiro.
You want to sit down? Do you
No,
want
I'm good.
to address everybody? I was just about to end this live. I want to get the scoop. So we will be back for the afternoon session. I'm going to end this here, and this video will redirect you to the afternoon video. So please stay tuned. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens after this lunch break. So we appreciate you. Thank you for all your super chats. And we will see you in about an hour. Bye, everybody.